Good afternoon and welcome to the Senate live proceedings on this Tuesday. The date is the 14th of March. The year is 2023. A broadcast made possible through the collaboration between the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation and the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit. There is a full entry in the order paper this afternoon for consideration by senators. And to just take you through the highlights in the order of business today is that the Senate will resume debates on the Natural Resources Benefit Sharing Bill, this being a bill from the Senate, Bill number 6 of the year 2022. Another bill for consideration by senators this afternoon is the County Vocational Education and Training Bill. This is a bill by Senator Moses Kajwang, the Senator for Homa Bay County, and this is a bill from the Senate, Bill number 3 of the year 2022. The provision of free sanitary towels to end period poverty is a motion by nominated Senator Gloria Oroba. And this particular motion seeks to have the Senate resolve that the Ministry of Public Service, Gender and Affirmative Action, in partnership with the Ministry of Education and the Council of Governors, one, do facilitate the provision of feminine hygiene products in all public schools, ensure that all schools that don't have bathrooms that facilitate privacy, cleanliness, and proper disposal of hygiene products are properly equipped. And also in the motion, Senator Gloria Oroba seeks to have the creation of awareness and taking advocacy measures on the reproductive health issues related to period poverty, include in the curriculum a dedicated lesson per week to teach girls on menstrual hygiene, and finally, ensure that sanitary products will be obtainable in a timely manner, consistently, and in a way that respects the dignity of the concerned persons. This is a resumption of debate on this particular motion on matters ending period poverty that was interrupted on Tuesday, the 28th of February. The doping menace threatening Kenyans' impeccable global reputation in matters athletics is a motion by Senator for Nandi, Honorable Samson Cherargei. And in the motion, the senator seeks to have the Senate resolve that the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Arts do come up with modalities that can help achieve increased testing, intelligence gathering on athletes, and doping awareness programs. In collaboration with Athletics Kenya and the National Olympics Committee of Kenya, NOC, to vet all training camps, coaches, trainers, and other athletes, handlers, and in collaboration with the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, as well as the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, finalize on pending investigations, and as well as recommend prosecution of individuals involved in giving these banned substances to athletes. The business of the Senate is just about to commence. The Speaker is in the chambers this afternoon. I now hand you over so you can follow up on the live broadcast of the Senate. Enjoy your viewing.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor and blessings us, your servants, whom you have been pleased to call to leadership positions in this republic. We seek guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen. Clerk, do we have quorum? Sergeant at Arms, kindly ring the bell for 3 minutes.
The Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Amason Kingi, has directed that the quorum bell be rung for 3 minutes, and this is to allow a few minutes for senators who have not yet made their way into the chamber to do that, to allow the House commence business this afternoon. A look at the order paper this afternoon is that the Senate is equally set to consider a motion by Senator for Marsabit County, and this particular motion is on the institution of measures to curb incessant high electricity costs in Kenya. And Senator Mohamed Chute, in this particular motion, seeks to have the Minister of Energy come up with a policy framework aimed at lowering the cost of electricity as a way of addressing the high cost of living, as well as enhance clean energy by switching renewable sources of energy such as geothermal power, wind power, among others, as a way of reducing the carbon print or carbon footprint. The Senator for Nyeri County, Senator Homo Matinga, in collaboration with the Senator for Mombasa County, Senator Mohamed Faki, do have a motion on the enhancing of highway safety and convenience. And this particular motion seeks to have persons who have in one way or another found themselves in an accident compensated properly. Pursuant to the provisions of Standing Orders number 53, subsection 1, a number of senators will be seeking statements from various departmental standing committees of the House. And given priority is the Senator for Murang'a County, Senator John Yuto, who will be seeking a statement from the Standing Committee on Matters Land, Environment, and Natural Resources concerning the exploitation of water resources in Murang'a County by the Nairobi Water and Sewerage Company. The Senator for Marsabit County, Senator Mohamed Chute, will be seeking a statement from the Standing Committee on Matters Energy regarding the status of oil exploration in Turkana County. The Senator for Taita Taveta County, that is Senator Jones Maruma, will be taking 3 statements. And the first statement is on the Committee on Land, Environment, and Natural Resources concerning encroachment of land belonging to Ikanga residents by the Kenya Airports Authority. The House appears to have raised the numbers. I'll now hand you over so we can follow up on what is happening in the chamber.
Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Honorable Senators, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the Speaker's Gallery this afternoon a delegation from the Samburu County Assembly comprising members of the Committee on Delegated Legislation and its Secretariat. The delegation is undertaking a 5-day capacity building program at the Center for Parliamentary Studies and Training, CPST. I request each member of the delegation to stand when called out so that you may be acknowledged in the Senate tradition. The Honorable Lolosoli Rebecca Samaria, Chairperson. The Honorable Lenanguram James Intu Tuk, Vice Chairperson. The Honorable Laurier Lawrence, Member of the Committee. The Honorable Stacy Nareyo Lekerumpoto, Member of the Committee. The Honorable Esther Lenokulal is a Member of the Committee. The Honorable Loloju Joseph Lekoren, Member. The Honorable Lemantan Kelvin Ipesina, Member. Mr. Lekupanai Leleo, Principal Clerk Assistant. Ms. Dorcas Laiku, Clerk Assistant, Mr. Bernard Lenanyokie, Sergeant at Arms, Mr. William Lelampa, Hansard Officer, Ms. Nanyu Letipila, Legal Counsel, and lastly, Mr. Evans Leleruk, Research Officer. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to the delegation, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. Honorable Senators, I have a further communication to make. I would like to acknowledge the presence in the Speaker's Gallery this afternoon, officers from the Sergeant at Arms Department of the Nyamira County Assembly. The officers are in the Senate for a 5-day benchmarking visit with their counterparts. I request each officer to stand when called out so that you may be acknowledged in the Senate tradition. Brian Mariasi Ondieki. Thank you. Eric Nyambati Mokua. Robinson Mounwa Maosa. Duke Nyakundi Mokua. Stella Mose Mora. And lastly, Jacqueline Kirubo Nyamboga. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to the delegation, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. Thank you. I will allow Senator Seki Lelegwe, Senator Lelegwe, on behalf of the delegations, to say short welcoming remarks, and also I will allow Senator Onyonka also to say short welcoming remarks. Kindly proceed, Senator Lelegwe.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. May I join you and my fellow senators in welcoming the visitors to the Senate. Specifically, Honorable Speaker, I take this opportunity to welcome members of the Samburu County Assembly, the members of the Delegated Legislation Committee, and the staff of the committee to the Senate. Mr. Speaker, as you note, we've been receiving visitors and members of the committees of many assemblies, and this is the first time we are receiving a committee of the Samburu County Assembly. We welcome you to the Senate. I'm sure you will learn a lot from us, from our committees, and also from the plenary. You will learn a lot that will benefit your deliberations and engagements with your committees to enrich and put more success to your reports and to the service of our people, the people of Samburu County. We welcome you to the Senate, and we wish you a fruitful visit for the next 5 days, and take time to learn from our committees. I'm already aware that you've engaged with the Committee of the Delegated Legislation in the National Assembly, and maybe within the next 5 days, you may have the opportunity to also interact with our committees. Our committees sit every Tuesday, Thursday, and Wednesday, and you may have the opportunity to learn from them. We expect a lot from you. We expect a lot you to represent our people, to do oversight, and to represent our county well in doing your legislation and putting together good legislation that will help our people. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and welcome. I also extend my welcome remarks to other delegations who are present in the Speaker's Gallery. We receive you and we invite you to learn from the Senate. Thank you so much.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me this opportunity just the way my colleague has said, I would like to welcome the team from Samburu. This place is an interesting place because when you come and have information and get information as to how you are going to run your offices when you go back to the county, the team that is in this chamber is a team of professionals. I'm sure you've met them, and most of them will gladly be willing to guide you, support you, and have some value addition to your training. For the team from Nyamira, I would like to hold the fort on behalf of my brother, Okongo Mogeni, who is out on official duty, but because we come from the same area, I again would also like to welcome you, wish you the best engagement, hope that you will learn a lot, and I hope that that will continue, Mr. Speaker, to make our counties more workable, make sure our counties are doing what they're meant to do, and that is legislation and other issues that are affecting our country. I hope that your training will be also a value addition, and I hope that after you've finished and go back home, you will be better placed to solve some of the very complex issues about security within the chamber, your responsibilities, and all that stuff. Mr. Speaker, thank you for this opportunity, and I wish you well. When you go back, say hi to everybody. Thank you, all of you.
Senator Chirange, you know you're out of order, yeah? Honorable Senators, I've got a further communication to make. I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon, a visiting delegation from Tasia Primary School, Nairobi County. The delegation comprises 4 teachers and 34 students who are in the Senate for a one-day study visit. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I will allow Senator Tabitha Mutinda to make very short welcoming remarks to the delegation. Welcoming the delegation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me take this opportunity to welcome the beautiful kids from Tasia, which is in Embakasi East constituency, Embakasi ward. Feel welcomed. There's a lot that we do in Senate. Senate, we have 2 parliaments. We have the National Assembly, and where we have the members of parliament. Your member of parliament on that side is called Honorable Babu Owino. On this side, we sit as the senators. The senator of, elected senator of Nairobi is called Senator Sifuna. I am a nominated senator, Senator Tabitha Mutinda. In this house, we have rules, the same way you have rules in school. We have the boss of the house, who is Mr. Speaker, and also the way you also have the head teacher and also the teachers. In this house, we also have the book that guides us in our rules, that is called the standing order. And this one is called the standing order. We also have another book that is called the Constitution. In Swahili, it's called Katiba. This is where the laws, this is when we make the laws, they now come into this book. I realize sometimes when the students come to the either Senate, mostly, sometimes we do not have an opportunity to tell you these things, but I found it a bit wise to actually enlighten you so that even when you go back, you understand that we have 2 sets of rules. That is what guides us here in the house. When we come in, we have to bow. And you'll realize when you'll be leaving, you have to bow as a sign of respect. Matters education, I want to tell you to pursue your goal. Continue working very smart. Continue respecting your teachers. Continue respecting your parents. Education is the only thing that your parents can give you for free. Also, the government has given it for free so that you can be able to defend yourself. You can be able to speak out for yourself as the younger generation. And matters LGBTQ, I've always said, do not get involved in those kind of things. Be the disciplined children that we've set the laws for, and I know you'll be able to shine. May God bless you, may God bless your parents, may God bless your teachers, and may you shine. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next order, clerk.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
Honorable Senators, I hereby report to the Senate that a petition has been submitted to the Senate by Mr. Calvin Luther Munai concerning titles for properties bought in Jamii Bora Estates, Kisaju, Kajiado County. As you are aware, under Article 1191 of the Constitution, and I quote, every person has a right to petition Parliament to consider any matter within its authority, including enacting, amending, or repealing any legislation. Honorable Senators, the salient issues raised in the said petition are as follows: that the petitioners are leaders in Jamii Bora Estate, representing owners of properties including over 900 homes, over 500 commercial units, several churches and mosques, public primary school, public secondary school, public borehole, and public playgrounds. That in the year 2008, the petitioners bought houses in Jamii Bora Estate in Kisaju, Kajiado County. That the petitioners signed letters of offer and sales agreements stating that the title deeds were being processed. That the developer has failed to process and issue title deeds to all completed unit owners on the said land in Jamii Bora Estate, and maintains that the petitioners will be issued title deeds after 20 years. That the developer has left some of the houses unfinished, while others have not been built, and in the process of building new houses on the same undeveloped plots for new owners contrary to the seller agreement. That the petitioners presented the matter to the Senate in the 12th Parliament, but the developer has closed down her company, which is the main respondent, and has been mutating from Jamii Bora Charitable Trust to Jamii Bora Macau to Urbanis Africa and other different existing entities. That there are similar developers who have defrauded Kenyans and rendered them homeless and bankrupt. That the petitioners have made efforts to address the matter by the relevant authorities, all of which have failed to give a satisfactory response. The petitioners therefore prayed that the Senate does the following: intervenes in this matter through the relevant committee with a view to ensuring that the owners of properties in Jamii Bora Estate are compensated and issue title deeds in accordance with the law. And 2, reviews the existing frameworks to regulate the real estate sector and enhance more strict penalties for developers and investors to ensure delivery of their projects. Now, Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 237, I shall now allow comments, observation, or clarifications in relation to this petition for not more than 30 minutes. Because we have limited time to make our contributions to this petition, I shall limit time for each member speaking to 3 minutes. The Honorable Chirange.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. You know, Mr. Speaker, sir, Kenyans are being conned left, right, and center. If you are not being conned of your title deed, you are being conned of an education scholarship. So, Mr. Speaker, these are very serious issues. The issue of titles is a serious concern because it breaches the Constitution on right to ownership of property, both ownership and possession. Mr. Speaker, and therefore I want to appeal to the Lands Committee to look at this issue and ensure Kenyans are access title deed, Mr. Speaker. This issue of Kajiado is not a unique case in itself. Even when you go to Nandi County, you go to coasts, you come to Nairobi, there is a serious fraud in terms of land ownership, Mr. Speaker, sir. Nowadays, people are dying not because of diseases, but because of shock and frustration and desperation of being conned, and because of fraud that Kenyans are being committed, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, I call upon the committee to expeditiously work with this issue. Mr. Speaker, we want to see Kenyans, when they spend their money to buy property, to buy land, Mr. Speaker, they should be given an opportunity to own, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, I want to ask in conclusion, the agencies like DCI, like EACC, like the police to do their job, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, upon your guidance, I just came from a committee of labor where we were listening to fraud and conning over 8,000 young men allegedly by a company called First Choice in Uasin-Gishu County, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's very unfortunate that we are being conned, and I hope some of us will not be conned from going to heaven, because either you are conned of your land, you are conned of your scholarship, you are conned of your money, Mr. Speaker. I think, Mr. Speaker, the DCI and EACC and the ministry concerned must tell Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, as to why, Mr. Speaker, as we talk today, Kenyans do not have a title deed and they are paid for it, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if that agency has mutated to another company, and yet we have agencies that give license, that regulate some of these bodies, Mr. Speaker, and they operate freely. Mr. Speaker, it is very unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, and therefore I sympathize and congratulate those petitioners for bringing to the House, Mr. Speaker, and I hope this matter shall be dealt with expeditiously. Let these Kenyans have their right, Mr. Speaker, and Mr. Speaker, they don't need to bring it to Senate so that they can be heard. Mr. Speaker, let's deal with this matter expeditiously and congratulate them and wish them well as they seek justice and access to title deed, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Beatrice Akinyi.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the petition to the Senate by Mr. Calvin Luther Munai. And Mr. Speaker, there are two issues that come out of this petition. There is the issue of non-compensation, and there's the issue of the delayance of issuance of title deeds. And Mr. Speaker, it is important that the Senate investigates this issue. One, because you have referred that it came up in the 12th Parliament and it has come again. But Mr. Speaker, as we get to the bottom line of this petition, it is also important that we take note of other such challenges that Kenyans are going through elsewhere. Mr. Speaker, it is important that people are compensated for their land if compensation is required, because it is a right. And Mr. Speaker, it is unfortunate that is in this country, after all these years of independence, we have parts of the country that still don't have title deeds. But coming back to compensation, Mr. Speaker, even in my county, there are markets where our people have not been compensated, but the county government collects cess from them, and yet those markets are still held as freehold land, Mr. Speaker. So as we talk about the compensation of the Jamii Bora estate, it is important that this is looked at generally. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of the delayance of title deeds, it is a common problem. As I say, Mr. Speaker, in my county, you find a whole island like Mfangano Island, Mr. Speaker, in Suba North Sub-County, still do not have title deeds. You find Kubia East in Gwasi, Suba South, still do not have title deeds. And a section of an adjudication place called Manywanda in Rangwe. So, Mr. Speaker, the issue of compensation and title deeds need to be looked at. And here we call upon also the National Lands Commission, where there are historical issues, historical justices that NLC was supposed to address. After 12 years in office, some of those issues remain unsolved, Mr. Speaker. I support this petition, and I support the fact that the Standing Committee of Land must go to the root cause of this problem, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Senator Cheptumo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also arise to support the petition. Mr. Speaker, the petition presents a very unfortunate situation. When you talk of an estate, Mr. Speaker, and you talk of several Kenyans who have invested in those houses, Mr. Speaker, out of their savings, out of their earnings from their salaries, with the hope of owning a house. Mr. Speaker, this has a lot of impact, even in the family situation, because a family would agree to invest, in that estate to buy a house. And Mr. Speaker, finally, the investor goes away with all the money. Mr. Speaker, this is a very, very unfortunate situation. Not only are we discussing what's happening in Chamibora Estate, in Kachado, in whichever place, Mr. Speaker, but this is a national issue. We've had a lot of these cases, Mr. Speaker, in the country. I would like to agree with the petitioner, Mr. Speaker, that there is need to have a very comprehensive legal framework. Mr. Speaker, once the investors have looted the money, some of them disappear out of the country, and they leave the Kenyans exposed. Mr. Speaker, I think there is need to have a law that has not only called for the compensation, but also criminalize this act of stealing from the Kenyan people. Mr. Speaker, the victims of this situation are young Kenyans who are employed, and they're beginning to look for a way of settling down with their young families by buying land, buying houses, and taking a loan in the bank. So, Mr. Speaker, you can imagine today, a young man employed in a bank has taken a mortgage to buy this house, and tomorrow he has lost the mortgage, he has lost the house, and a young family. Mr. Speaker, it causes a lot of social challenges in our society. It is important, Mr. Speaker, this house, and I'm happy, I am a member of the Lands Committee, and I will be participating in this discussion of the petition. And I think, Mr. Speaker, it is important as a house that we also rise up to the occasion and develop a mechanism and a law that is going to protect Kenyans, not only in this Chamibora estate, but in many other estates. Mr. Speaker, I believe in some of the members of this house. They may not say it, but I know some of them have become victims of this situation. It does not only deal with the young people, it actually affects almost every Kenyan, even those of us in leadership. Mr. Speaker, I support.
Senator Onyonka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. According to our standing orders, I have to make a declaration, and that is that I have the same matter that is affecting me personally, but I shall not divulge or even discuss the details of that case, because the case is in court. Mr. Speaker, this issue is a national issue. The issue of land title deeds, where you find a piece of land is owned by 3 or 6 people, where nobody knows where the records of the pieces of land and the titles and all the PDPs and all the documents that are required. You will be shocked that you even go to the Ministry of Lands and say, can you please give me this file which is supposed to have these documents, and they'll tell you there's nothing there. Mr. Speaker, I really would like to make a plea to the chair of the Lands Committee. He needs now to think outside the box. We must begin to look at these issues. You know these are issues that are involving the county governments. You know that some of our colleagues and friends in the county governments who find they're the ones who have an interest, where they are in fact deliberately even forestalling and preempting the decisions which the Kenya National Land Commission and decisions which have been made. Some of them don't even want to listen to court orders. And I hope the KK administration, anytime that a court order on a matter that has been finalized and has been called out by the courts, I hope this government will implement whatever the decision is. But Mr. Speaker, to finish, let us have an approach where we look at the land question in Kenya comprehensively. Let us not deal with our problem in a piecemeal matter. We were supposed to do digitization of the land record system. It has not been done. I know there's a challenge in terms of the resources. We are supposed to, if need be, I'm actually, Mr. Speaker, going to encourage the Land Committee to in fact seek experts who can form either a subcommittee or form an ad hoc committee which will specifically look at these issues and make sure they are sorted out expeditiously so that Kenyans don't feel disenfranchised and denied their rights. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I hope that the committee will work as soon as possible to try and solve this country's problems on matters land. Thank you.
Senator Okanyuri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to comment on this petition by saying that generally Kenyans of all walks of life are being conned left, right, and center. I do not want to conclude that this case might end up as a way of conning, but I'm afraid if it's taken all that time, we do not even know if maybe the owner of the main title deed committed it to a loan or something, and the residents are not even able to get their respective title deeds. The issue of such conning is existing in different areas, and it's affecting women largely, because you realize the relationship between land ownership, women, education go together, especially women from the rural areas. In this case, we are looking at Kajiado, but look at women from the rural areas who are not able to acquire title deeds, and therefore they do not have collateral for acquisition on any loan to develop themselves. So the issue might be the one that has been presented to us today, but looking at it from a wide spectrum, it affects very many of our ordinary people that we represent in this house, and I think it's in order that the committee looks at that issue widely and action is taken. I know we will keep mentioning these issues. Sometimes it becomes like, you know, it's a normal procedure. I don't think it's a normal procedure that we keep speaking at the same issues, that people who are ordinary and very innocent being affected by some of these issues, just like what Senator Cherargei mentioned about the conning of students who want to acquire academics. And we say that academics is one of the issues that is making it level for every other person to benefit. But they are the same people who are being conned, so where do such people run to? So, Mr. Speaker, I also support that the issue of land is a thorny issue. Let whoever was compensating the people in Kajiado be investigated so that we know if they committed this title deed to acquiring loans or other things that are now disadvantaging the people who purchased this land. Thank you.
Senator Oburu Odinga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, the issue of land is a very, very sensitive issue because it is, as much as it is a social issue, it is also an economic issue. Mr. Speaker, land is an asset for the people, and it is used to enable people to acquire some little wealth for themselves. And Mr. Speaker, since independence, land has remained, the issues of land have remained unresolved, and the Ministry of Land has also been classified sometimes back as the most corrupt. Because, Mr. Speaker, that is where you go and you want your file, and you will be told the file cannot be found. And yet it was left on the desk of a certain officer. And, Mr. Speaker, when you go there and a messenger follows you and tells you that he is able to help you if you can produce some lunch. And if you come back in the afternoon, you will find your file there, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in this area, I sympathize with the people of Jamibora, of Kajiado, because this is a practice which is not only concerning them, but it is something which happens all over the country. Mr. Speaker, I remember there's one time when I was the provincial planning officer for Coast Province, and I remember in Malindi, somebody sold land to a certain person, to an important person in this society in Nairobi. But when they went now to do the actual survey of the land, they found that the land was in the ocean, Mr. Speaker. You know, and money had already been received, and whoever was getting that money had run away and gone out of the country. So, Mr. Speaker, this issue of land adjudication requires improvement in terms of technology so that we reduce human contact. Mr. Speaker, it is too much human contact which creates corruption. Because when you deal with so many people, everybody wants to take something small, the wananchi end up to be the losers. So, Mr. Speaker, this issue of digitizing the Ministry of Lands so that there is less contact and issues like the ones being suffered by the by Nini Bora, you call it the Jamii Bora in Kajiado, will not repeat again. Mr. Speaker, I want to support this issue.
Senator Nyamu, you're out of order. If you want to move from one side to the other side, you know exactly what to do. Kindly go do it. Senator Gataya Mofaya.
Sorry. I don't know whether I'm audible enough. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I have looked at this petition, and I thought maybe the petition was addressing issues that are affecting quite a number of areas in this country. Honorable Speaker, land is a very emotive issue. We are 60 years down the line since we got independence, but we have a lot of cases in this country, Honorable Speaker, about land, which goes unsolved up to now. Honorable Speaker, as a House, we need a very comprehensive policy to make sure that we address these pertinent land issues that are developing this country. I come from a very emotive area, Honorable Speaker, where there is a lot of antagonism between the two tribes, actually brothers, because of land issues. And the whole thing revolves around corruption and politics. So it's important for this House, Honorable Speaker, to carry this mandate and make sure that we have addressed these issues about land comprehensively so that we can have some historical issues resolved. Because we have seen people die because of land. We have seen brothers kill each other because of land. We have seen tribes turn against each other tribe because of land. We have seen evictions, even some very brutal evictions, being carried sometimes even at night. And it's something very pathetic, Honorable Speaker, that as a senior house in this country, we need to come up with a comprehensive policy that is supposed to address this issue of land once and for all. I sincerely thank the petitioner because actually in the next few days I was also bringing a similar petition over that matter because where I come from, especially in my county, home county Tharaka Nithi, and our brothers Meru County, we have some historical issues to do with these land problems. So it's a matter of urgency that this House is supposed to address these issues comprehensively and make some conclusive conclusions. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I seriously support.
Senator Shakil Abdallah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this petition. Mr. Speaker, as we all understand, our population is growing in the country, and there's a big demand of land and accommodation for many upcoming young people. Mr. Speaker, I first want to say that we have come up with a new program, or rather system, which is not very familiar in this country, whereby we have developers who develop houses and then they are bought in different parts, like you buy a apartment, 1 or 2, and so kind of things. Initially, Kenya didn't have that system. It's like you buy your own land, you put up your own house and such kind of things. But now, with this new system in place, I think we need a policy to protect the developers and to protect the buyers. I think that is what we lack, Mr. Speaker. And we do have many land laws and policies The only problem we have in this country is the enforcement of the law, Mr. Speaker. We don't really enforce the laws. We have the best laws in this country, but enforcement is the big challenge. I don't know whether there's no goodwill or no political will to enforce the laws, but that is the challenge we are facing. So actually we need to have a policy which protects the buyers, because this case particularly touches on the developer. And we do have developers who are not protected by the law, buyers are not protected by the law, the new system is in place. That is all we need now to have, Mr. Speaker. And the enforcement of the law is what I'm insisting on. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sigei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for also granting me the opportunity to put my voice to the petition that has been filed by Calvin Luther Munai of Jamii Bora Estate. Mr. Speaker, the land question in Kenya is as old as not Kenya, but Kenya as before independence. There is sufficient, as my colleague has said, regulations in terms of laws that dates back to before independence. And we cannot for a moment forget the fact that the land question, the title deed, is as important as everything else. Mr. Speaker, this house stands in a parcel of land. This house is registered under a certain document of ownership called a title deed. The petition on behalf of Jamii Bora residents who have been conned out of their hard-earned investment can only be termed as one of those which, as the Honorable Oburu said, sympathetic with no help. But again, having the process that this house can support or assist to ensure that the members who invested their hard-earned money in Jamii Bora Estate be compensated is the only way out. But then, Mr. Speaker, it is also acknowledged not only by the members who invested there, but everyone else, that without that particular document called title, you do not have any right to claim. And therefore, this petition by Mr. Calvin is one which speaks not only to the membership of Jamii Bora, but beyond, because there are so many people who have invested in various investment schemes, whether in form of development of housing units or even in land in itself, and have been conned out of their money. It is time, Mr. Speaker, that we support the government and the institutions involved in land management to ensure that not only the law that is in place is just seen to be in place, but the good will be created so that persons involved in implementation and also regulation of the land question and investment in the land sector is put to task where such incidences like this one are reported. If it is about an element that has gone to the criminality of it all, let such people face the law so that they will not only act as examples, but also support the criminal. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kavindu.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to support this petition by Mr. Calvin Luther Mumanyi from Kajiado. Mr. Speaker, this is just one of many projects which has been started in this country, and many Kenyans, through their hard earning and struggles of earning money, buy such properties, and they end up losing every penny after saving with a lot of struggles. Mr. Speaker, this is a very timely petition, and Mr. Speaker, these people should be given their dues, and even those who have managed to buy should be given their title deeds. Mr. Speaker, I'm talking of a certain place in Machakos County called Katelembu, where many people buy pieces of land, and you find a land being sold to 2 or 4 or 5 different people, and they all pay money, and they all have different title deeds. And Mr. Speaker, we wonder at times, where do these people get all these title deeds? We have the land ministry, and how do they issue all these different title deeds to different people and from a particular piece of land? Mr. Speaker, to continue, I also have this issue in Machakos for Dramville, which I've even brought a statement here, which I'm still waiting to hear from the people who are concerned. And Mr. Speaker, I cannot even count how many places in Machakos. Portland, we have a lot of issues where citizens of Machakos have pieces of land and they cannot even access their own land. You find that land has been sold to a person who even has a title deed and the land does not belong to them. And they put goons there that even the owners of that land, when they try to go there, they cannot even access their land. Mr. Speaker, we want justice for land. We need title deed. Every Kenyan has a right to own a title deed, to own a home. And because we are, Kenyans are working hard, they deserve to have what belongs to them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Matinga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. I also like to support the petitioner. As has been said by my colleagues who stood before me to support the petition, the issue of land dates back to pre-colonial eras when the white man came, took our land and gave us the Bible. We followed the word and lost the land to him. Now, the rich who got the opportunity to make some money have also led Kenya in the same path. They collect our money in the name of starting schemes, and then 20, 30 years down the line, we do not get that land. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is the high time that we, especially in the Kenya Kwanza, that is committed to protect the hustler, do put laws in place that will not only be punitive to people who force Kenyans to buy pieces of land that they'll never get, to make sure that justice, the wheel of justice, will be spinning faster than they can think, so that we can protect Kenyans from losing further to these goons. Mr. Speaker, sir, we've heard the President of Kenya pronounce himself that we're going to construct 100 big mega dams. We know now the same people, Mr. Speaker, sir, are going around the country buying the land across the areas where the dams will be constructed, so that they can again conspire with the people working at the land's office for them to get compensated. It is the time we as a House come up with legislative measures so that we try to protect the local communities from these speculative land grabbers who will spare nothing to go and milk Kenyans dry. Mr. Speaker, sir, we are also aware of the fact that most of the land in Kenya was given as tenure and 99 years lease. It is the high time we start asking ourselves what happens after the lease expires. It will surprise the House, Mr. Speaker, sir, to know that most of these pieces of land are taken over by a few people, by a few families that own the banks, and then sold to unsuspecting innocent Kenyans at a very exorbitant prices, although they are actually gotten for free after the lease expires. It is the high time, Mr. Speaker, sir, that we call a spade, and agree that we have attached a lot of value to land to an extent that we've lost the moral authority to actually even take care of our own brothers. I therefore think, Mr. Speaker, sir, as we support this petition, we must come up with measures that will ensure that Kenyans are protected, that will ensure that those who have benefited from land deals that are unfair, that do pay and pay dearly. This is the only way, Mr. Speaker, sir, that we can deal with these cartels. It is the high time that we dealt with them the same way we deal with drug dealers, because that is what they are. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I support.
Senator Mwaruma.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to add my voice to the petition by the residents of Jamii Bora. Mr. Speaker, it is the right of any person in Kenya to petition the Senate on any matter. And I would like to thank the residents of Jamii Bora for having faith in the Senate and presenting this Senate on their issue of issuance of title deeds after purchasing property through Jamii Bora. Mr. Speaker, in the last parliament, we were able to firm up laws to regulate purchase of property, especially when you have developers who build like flats and sell them. Initially, it was not very clear how they're going to get titles, but after the repeal or review of Sexual Properties Act, it has made it very possible for somebody to get a flat and to get a title or a sublease for that flat. However, Mr. Speaker, it is annoying to realize that there are some developers who are not following that law, and would need to look at the issues, the silent issues that have been raised in that petition to see how to assist the people who bought houses in Jamii Bora development. Mr. Speaker, we found that law, especially where we have phased development, that is where a developer is having the first phase of development and people are purchasing houses. And previously it was difficult when you have phased development, like you expect to have swimming pools, playgrounds. They were changing the plans, the architectural designs and so on, and changing and building other things. But through passage of that Sexual Properties Act amendment, we were able to firm up that if you start, this is the plan, you have to go through up to the end. Mr. Speaker, being in the Lands Committee, we have been able to solve very many issues to do with land. These issues are not only in Kajiado, Jamii Bora, but in the whole of Kenya. And we have many issues that we've raised across the country and tried to solve across the country. And even this one would look at it and see how the residents of Jamii Bora can get justice. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Karen Nyamu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this petition by residents of Jamii Bora. Mr. Speaker, the issue of land is not only an emotive one, but also a very expensive one, because land happens to be not a cheap resource. Mr. Speaker, in Nairobi, we have experienced what we call land cartels, whereby residents who own, or if you own idle land, there are some land cartels who identify your land and claim that it belongs to them. And these cartels are protected sometimes by even the police and other authorities. And Mr. Speaker, we are called upon to protect the interests of our people. The RT SASA, which attempted to digitalize the issues of land in Kenya, we have seen has failed. The other day, as lawyers, we were demonstrating against that system of RT SASA. I call upon the Committee of ICT, which I sit in, to come up with an improved way to digitalize the land and titles in the country, whereby you cannot have double allocation. We'll eliminate the issues of double allocations and people claiming that property is theirs that does not belong to them. We also call upon this House to stand firm and come up with laws that protect our people. With that, Mr. Speaker, I support.
Senator Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to allow me also add my voice to the many of us senators that are supporting this petition by Mr. Calvin Munayi. And Mr. Speaker, the issue of compensation. If anyone agrees that they are going to compensate somebody on whatever it is, they should, Mr. Speaker, be able to keep their word. I say this because last week I talked about Kakuzi Limited in my county of Murang'a, who was supposed also to compensate Mwambo Farmers Cooperative since 1988, and that has not been done. And so, just like Jamii Bora Estate, Mr. Speaker, there are many people whose compensations have not materialized. And I think it's a high time that we did something to see to it that everyone that is supposed to be compensated is compensated. Mr. Speaker, regarding this issue of Jamii Bora, denial to get a title, Mr. Speaker, especially in these hard economic times, is a big misdeed, Mr. Speaker, because we know that people use titles as collateral sometimes, so that they can be able to borrow money from lending institutions, Mr. Speaker, so that they may be able to start businesses or things that could be of much use to them in as far as improving their lives is concerned, Mr. Speaker. And so the issuance of titles in this particular estate of Jamii Bora, Mr. Speaker, should be expedited at the earliest possible opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to enable the residents to be able to maybe get loans on the titles as collateral, Mr. Speaker. The matter that the fact that this matter came up in the 12th Parliament and was not resolved, Mr. Speaker, is something that this House should take very seriously. Otherwise, we run the risk of being a House, Mr. Speaker, that does things just for the sake of formality. And so, Mr. Speaker, I think even as the Lands Committee deals with this matter, I think we should do it conclusively so that we do not become the laughingstock, Mr. Speaker, of the people out there that we only do things for formality, Mr. Speaker. And so the last thing that I would want to say before my time lapses is that no company should ever be allowed to change their names, to mutate to some other thing before they have been cleared under their previous name, Mr. Speaker. And finally, because Senator Oburu has said that some title was found to have been for land that belonged to the ocean, Mr. Speaker.
I'm afraid your time is up. Senator Tabita.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do rise to support the petitioner. And I want to start by echoing what my colleagues have mentioned and support their sentiments, but to emphasize that land issues in matters cartels has been very prone, actually, apart from Nairobi, but also its environments like Kiambu and also areas like Kajiado, because Nairobi has become quite congested and people have started moving to other counties to seek land on matters housing. And the issue of double allocation, double sale of the same piece of land has been quite rampant. And I would want to urge the CS, the PS, to be able to take this matter very, very seriously. I've been able to look at this petition and the concerns that I've been able to raise, that the said director, that is Ms. Sophia, has been able to take collateral using the same title. No, and the members of Jamii Bora Estate were not aware, according to this petition. A very sad issue and an indication of like a fraud, because you should be able to inform your members, Mr. Speaker, on any agreements that you're having. Then I ask the question, since this matter has been there from 2008, is the said person, Ms. Sophia, above the law, if this matter has been there all these years? What has happened? This is an issue, Mr. Speaker. I would request you, Mr. Speaker, not only to actually allocate to the committee labor, but is there a way that this can be actually a plenary matter? Because looking at all the contribution that has been made by my colleagues, this matter touches different counties of this country. The President, His Excellency, is actually on the first agenda on our Kenya Kwanza manifesto as putting housing project as a priority because of the realization of the need of the housing project. And it is so sad in this era and time that an individual would be able to actually be confident to continue conning Kenyans in this manner. Mr. Speaker, I've also been able to have an opportunity to Google Ms. Sophia Ingrid Munro. And she's a resident, she's from the Swedish government. She's worked in the Swedish government from what I've been able to Google. And as at now, we are actually engaging investors, both locally and both international. So then I ask this particular investor, is she not actually portraying a negative name to the other international investors who would be wanting to invest in our country for the name that she has put from where she comes from, which is actually in Sweden? It raises so much eyebrows, Mr. Speaker. And I would urge that the DCIs, the Office of the Lands, the CS, the PS, they should take this matter.
Sorry, Senator, your time is spent. Honorable Senators, the half an hour meant to interrogate this petition is far spent. And pursuant to Standing Order 238-1, the petition is supposed to be committed, and I hereby do commit this petition to the Committee on Roads, Transportation and Housing for its consideration, with the option that this committee can co-opt the Committee on Lands. In terms of Standing Order 238-2, the committee is required in not more than 60 calendar days from time of reading the prayer to respond to the petitioners by way of a report addressed to the petitioner and laid on the table of the Senate. Next order, Clerk.
Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader.
Yes. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the Senate today, Tuesday, 14th March 2023. 1, the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the County Executive of Bomet for the year ended 30th June 2022. 2, the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the County Assembly of Bomet for the year ended 30th June 2022. 3, the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of County Executive of Kwale for the year ended 30th June 2022. 4, the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of County Assembly of Kwale for the year ended 30th June 2022, and the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Diani Municipality for the year ended 30th June 2022. I beg to lay.
Chair Lands.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the Senate today, Tuesday, 14th March 2023. The report of the Committee of the National Assembly Departmental Committee on Environment, Forestry and Mining, and the Senate Standing Committee on Lands, Environment and Natural Resources on the approval hearing for Ms. Emily Muita, Mr. John Kioli, Ms. Uma Omar, and Professor George Odera Outa, the nominees for the appointment as members of the National Council, Climate Change Council. I beg to lay.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Chairman Lands.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to give notice of the following motion. That the Senate adopts the report of the Joint Committee of the National Assembly Departmental Committee on Environment, Forestry and Mining and the Senate Standing Committee on Lands, Environment and Natural Resources on the approval hearing for the nominees for the appointment as members of the National Climate Change Council laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 14 March 2023, and approves the nomination of Ms. Emily Muita, Mr. John Kioli, and Professor George Odera Outa as members of the National Climate Change Council and rejects the nomination of Ms. Omar.
Next order.
Order number 7, statements.
Senator Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to a request for statement on the exploitation of water resources in Murang'a County. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources on the exploitation of water resources in Murang'a County by Nairobi Water and Sewerage Company. In the statement, the committee should, 1, give the status of the Northern Collector Tunnel project, indicating the stipulated time for its completion, the construction status so far, and the expected date of launch. 2, provide the expected daily average water production capacity of the Northern Collector Tunnel project to Nairobi City County and neighboring counties, indicating how much water in cubic meters to be channeled to the residents of Murang'a County. 3, provide the current daily average water production capacity of the Dakaine Dam to Nairobi City County and neighboring counties, specifying the average water supply in cubic meters channeled to Murang'a County. And 4, spell out the strategic interventions put in place by the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation to ensure residents of Murang'a County get access to water from Dakaine Dam, which is a major water resource endowed to the county. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mohammed Chute. Are you holding brief for Senator? Very well. Proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So I'm holding brief for Senator Chute. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 51-3 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Energy regarding the status of oil exploration in Turkana. In the statement, the committee should, 1, apprise the Senate on the status of the oil exploration and extraction in Turkana since the discovery of the oil field in 2012, stating the companies involved in the exploration and the extraction. 2, state the current crude oil price of each barrel and the current value in Kenya shillings of the commercially viable oil reserves. And 3, state the cumulative quantity of oil that has been produced so far and the projection of oil exploration and extraction in project in the next 10 years. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Geoffrey Osotsi. The statement is deferred. Senator Samson Cherange.
Mr. Speaker, sir, request for statement on scholarships on education programs between counties in Kenya and academic institutions outside the country. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Education regarding scholarships on education programs between county governments and academic institutions outside the country. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee should, 1, appraise the Senate on the exact number of scholarships on education programs currently in place, guaranteed by county governments and managed by academic institutions outside the country, disclosing the terms and conditions of such scholarships. Mr. Speaker, number 2, find out whether the Ministry of Education has a policy framework guiding counties in engaging with educational institutions abroad. Number 3, Mr. Speaker, sir, state the measures the Ministry of Education is instituting in facilitating students currently facing termination of their academic programs and repatriation from Finland, Mr. Speaker. Sorry, let me take that one. State measures the Ministry of Education is instituting in facilitating students currently facing termination of their academic programs and repatriation from Finland due to non-payment of fees occasioned by withdrawal of their fees held in trust accounts. And finally, Mr. Speaker, outline the measures the Ministry of Education has put in place, if any, to streamline the terms and conditions of these scholarships occasioned by rising cases of students being airlifted to study in various academic institutions abroad on scholarships guaranteed by county governments across the country, outlining measures to safeguard parents from being swindled, Mr. Speaker. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I can see the Senator of Siaya, Senator Oburu Odinga, is in the House, and there is a Simeo rally in Siaya. I hope all is well, Mr. Speaker. With those very many remarks, I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Ojenda. Senator Ojenda, I can see you on the queue.
Yes, Mr.
Proceed.
Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute to the statement by learned friend Cherargei, Senator Cherargei, Senator for Nandi. Eldoret, Nandi, yes. Mr. Speaker, sir, may I mention that this question of students being repatriated from Finland on account of scholarships that seem not to have been well managed by the Uasin Gishu County is a matter of concern to the national, it's a matter of concern to the nation, because, Mr. Speaker, sir, we have watched this unfolding event in the last weeks, and it's embarrassing to the education system, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, my understanding of this question is that when counties get to the arena of education to sponsor students, there often must be a framework contract. I assume that what the Uasin Gishu County ought to have done was to have an engagement that was definitive in terms, so that students moving to Finland would know the extent of the fees that would be covered by the scholarship, so that we do not have the scenarios that we are witnessing in the last weeks, where poor parents who contributed to the scholarships of their sons and daughters, presuming that the scholarship contribution would take care of the entire study period, come back and lament in public, blaming the past administration for mismanaging scholarships, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am alive to the fact that the ESCC is already investigating this question, and therefore I'm sure that that will be dealt with. But I think the question we must deal with here, Mr. Speaker, sir, is to what extent where devolved functions are performed by counties, to what extent should counties go to sponsor education to students?
Senator Lamu County. You can consult, yes, but kindly do not in any way disrupt. We need to hear the senator who is contributing. So kindly consult in law.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, a lesson should be learned by counties and governors who float scholarships for the benefit of their constituents, and even senators, that you must define the parameters of the scholarship so that we do not have the public coming back to file complaints at the county. And I think that is the case of Uasin Gishu. Perhaps, Mr. Speaker, sir, the problem here is that the framework of the scholarship and the extent to which the scholarship was defined was not known by the recipients of the scholarships. And that is why even the question of accounts being mismanaged is not clear, Mr. Speaker, sir. We urge our governors to study Schedule 4 of the Constitution and to know what powers or what functions are devolved and what functions they can perform. I know that in terms of education, early childhood education or primary, lower primary education is what is devolved. But the higher levels of education, Mr. Speaker, sir, and the new framework that we know that there's reform within the sector resides in the national government and not the county government. We pray, Mr. Speaker, sir, and this applies to all governors, that governors should put their acts together, function within the law, do not go into areas that you cannot afford or areas where the people you serve ill understand the processes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Cheptuma.
Mr. Speaker, I want to support the statement by the Nandi County Senator. And Mr. Speaker, if you read the statement, it is regarding scholarship in the education sector between counties in Kenya and academic institutions outside the country. Mr. Speaker, though I agree with my colleague, classmate, Senator Senior Counsel Ochenda about the devolvement of education to the ECDs, and then for the primary, secondary, and university, it's not devolved. But, Mr. Speaker, where a county government, as a matter of policy, allocates resources in the account and support a specific education program to take students in their counties to universities abroad in a very clear program, specific with the university, the scholarship amount, and it's very clear, Mr. Speaker, I think that is still allowed. I think, Mr. Speaker, where the problem is where it is not clear, as said by the other member, the extent of these scholarships, Mr. Speaker. Counties are supplementing also to support the national government in advancing education. So, Mr. Speaker, I think what we need to insist on is that any county that intends to sponsor a scholarship program for their students should be able to be clear whether the scholarship is full or for 1 year or for 2 years, and so on, so that it becomes clear to the parents, Mr. Speaker. I really want to support that counties should be able to support education sector, though it is not evolved. Just like, Mr. Speaker, the matters of insecurity. It is true, insecurity, Mr. Speaker, security is not yet evolved to the county governments. But, Mr. Speaker, just like education, security is a problem that is affecting the citizens of a county. And where we have a county government ready to support the national government in advancing security matters, it is still welcome, Mr. Speaker. For example, in Baringo and other areas, Mr. Speaker, we have the NPRs, the National Police Service, the young people employed in those counties to help the police in the security matters, where the county governments are able to provide some salary, some stipends, Mr. Speaker, say 5,000, 10,000, in addition to what the government is giving. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to agree with this statement by Gerard K., but to say that counties must be clear to the parents of those students who are supposed to provide scholarships, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, there's even a bigger problem on these matters of scholarships. Most of our friendly countries, Mr. Speaker, they are in, say, Japan, Britain, and other countries, Mr. Speaker, they give a lot of scholarships to our country. And I think, Mr. Speaker, there should be an affirmative action even for that program. Those officers in the Ministry of Education, Mr. Speaker, tend to allocate those positions to their members from their counties. I think there should be a policy. If there is a scholarship from Britain, for example, with 10 scholarships, 20 scholarships should be spread across the county, Mr. Speaker, counties that we have. And when we have another country giving scholarships, the same thing should apply. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to agree that there is need to look at the entire aspect of scholarship in our country, not only with regard to counties, but even in the Ministry of Education, so that we have that fairness for our own country. I support, Mr. Speaker, the statement.
Senator Boni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a very serious issue. Very serious. A few weeks ago, I was in the city of Eldoret, and this was a matter that was active and in public domain. Mr. Speaker, this statement should go further, because we are not talking about millions of students. We are not even talking about hundreds of thousands of students, just a number of students. There should be an audit for every county government to establish any existence of such a children, so that we know the circumstances under the children who are taken out. A record be given to this House showing the account that were opened, so as to be allowing monies to be deposited in those accounts for purposes of paying for these school fees, Mr. Speaker. And what's more, Mr. Speaker, the report should also tell us who are the signatories of those accounts. When I talk about public domain, Mr. Speaker, I was hearing things including signatories of those accounts, honorable senators, have bought property, they have bought, including land and vehicles, money that was meant to pay schools for these children. I'm sure the governors who might have been behind this noble idea didn't know that they were opening an avenue for swindling of public funds. And then finally, since we shall be having the list, we would like the statement to confirm that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, purely on humanitarian grounds, is going to take up these children with arrears so that they are taken back to complete their courses. Mr. Speaker, some of the children were taken to undergo courses in law, in medicine, in engineering. They were diverted from local universities where they would have been sponsored for free. So this is a major scandal. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Seki.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to support this statement from the Senator of Nandi, Senator Charangei, on this matter of scholarship of students across the country. I believe this is not just an issue for Western Gishu County, but this is a matter that touches all counties in Kenya. Knowing that almost every county government and even national government has allocated an amount for scholarship and even bursaries to benefit the students of this country, and in particular, the issue of counties bringing up the fund for bursary fund to their own people. This is a matter that this statement will come to try to conclude this matter, and even look at how counties have given out and allocated these bursaries and even scholarship to students in their own counties. This is a matter that is very much, it is in the hands of this country to get to understand and to I want to know the transparency, because we believe this is where there is a lot of scam in counties. We understand that those people who benefit from these scholarships are not supposed to be benefit, that those who are supposed to benefit, but they're not getting it. And this is an area where now this statement through the committee, which I am a member, will look at it and get to address this issue and report back to what is happening in the country. I believe issues of scholarship, there is no transparency. I know it has never been there. And this is a time we believe that we'll bring this issue to this house to get to understand what is happening. But I want to say, I believe that what has been happening, even in Finland and all other countries, probably from the Uasin Gishu County, maybe it has been a good motive. There was a good idea on this, because Finland has a very good educational systems. So I think this is a good idea, probably, but I think there is a process that we want to go and investigate to see what is happening. But I believe that the committee that will look at this matter will go over beyond the borders to see that these things have been put in rest. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Guru.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to thank the Senator of Nandi, my friend, for bringing out this matter, because matter of education, Mr. Speaker, has been a very, very central matter even during the struggle for independence of this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there was the airlift of Tom Mboya in the 50s and the early 60s. And Mr. Speaker, there were also airlifts of Jaramogi, my father, taking people to the eastern countries when there was a Cold War. But Mr. Speaker, normally when there is a good thing, there are people who are corrupt and who take advantage. And they take advantage of a good thing, and because they know it is good, there is enthusiasm, there is interest, and people are ready even to commit their resources to support the good and noble causes. And when people produce their resources, then some people now find a way of swindling. So I think it is not something to be stopped. It is not something where we really need to investigate how to stop it, but it is something which we need to investigate with a way to encouraging it and ridding it of any corruption. Mr. Speaker, this is a very, very important matter, because education never ends. Even me now, I'm on the almost reaching the 8th floor of my life, but I am still pursuing education. I want people to learn, and there is no limit to acquiring knowledge, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Cherigay, my brother, also said I should be in Siaya, but Mr. Speaker, I want to inform him that I'm there with my head, my eyes, my body. The whole of it is there. It is only my body, which you see here. But because of health reasons, I'm not there. Mr. Speaker, I support this, and we urge the committee to investigate and find out and make conclusions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kinyua.
Bwana Spika, nataka kushukuru kwa kunipa fursa hii, na nimshukuru Senator Cherargei kwa kuleta swala hili nyeti la mambo ya udhamini wa wanafunzi. Bwana Spika, udhamini wa wanafunzi umekuwa ni jambo nzuri sana, lakini wale ambao ni wakora wanachukua fursa ile kujinufaisha wenyewe, kwa sababu wanajua wanafunzi wengi, Bwana Spika, hawana uwezo. Ukiwatajia udhamini ni watu ambao wanataka masomo, lakini kwa sababu ya ukosefu wa hela, Bwana Spika, wanachanga, kunafanywa mchango. Unapata hata wale ambao wanaishi katika maisha uchochole, Bwana Spika, wanafanya harambe kusudi waweze kupata ule udhamini na kupeleka watoto wao waweze kupata masomo. Bwana Spika, kamati ambayo itashughulikia inapaswa ilete mwangaza zaidi, watu wajue serikali ama wizara ya elimu ni hatua zipi ambayo inachukua kusudi wa Kenya wawache kulagawiwa wakiwa wanatafuta huu udhamini, Bwana Spika. Kwa sababu Wakenya wanataka masomo, Bwana Spika, na wamejua ya kwamba watapata masomo ya kiwango cha juu pengine wakienda katika nchi za uraibuni, Bwana Spika. Na Bwana Spika, kwa sababu ya ule umaskini, mtu yeyote ambaye anasema atawadhamini wanafunzi, watu watauza mbuzi, watauza kuku kwa minajili ya kupata ule udhamini, Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo kamati, Bwana Spika, ambayo itapatiwa hili jukumu, isiangalie tu sehemu hiyo ya Uasin Gishu, isiangalie tu taarifa iliyoletwa, Bwana Spika, iangazie hayo mambo kwa kindani, ndio waweze kuleta suluhu la kudumu, Bwana Spika. Tusiwe kila wakati tunaongea kuhusu hili jambo, kwa sababu, Bwana Spika, kwa sababu ya ule ufukara wananchi walionao, ndio wanaweza kuhadaiwa, Bwana Spika, na hawa walagai ambao wanachukua kila fursa iliyoko, Bwana Spika. Si fursa ya kuajiri watu, Bwana Spika, si fursa kama hii ya wanafunzi wanatafuta udhamini, ni fursa yoyote ambao walagai wanaona ambapo watu wanachechemkia jambo lile, nao walagai wanachukua fursa hile kuwalagai wananchi wa Kenya. Bwana Spika, naunga mkono na ningeomba kamati ambayo ishughulikie kwa kindani na waweze kutupatia suluhu la kudumu, Bwana Spika. Nashukuru.
Senator Okanyuri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to support this concern because I'm one of the young people initially. Before joining this Senate, I had severally been applying for scholarships in anticipation for being shortlisted so that I'm able to pursue further studies in my area of interest. So I surely understand when Senator Cherargei wants this issue to be looked at, because we know very well, in as much as we keep saying that we are Kenyans first, sometimes this allocation of scholarships have been marred with issues of even nepotizing them, in that people from specific areas are given priority, while people from other areas are disadvantaged. I think it's time we also need a report on beneficiaries of these scholarships, because the intention is you give people scholarships, go study, come and enrich our country. So to this extent, we need a report on Kenyan students who have benefited from the scholarships, so that we also make recommendations on what we think are the scholarships assisting our countries and children so far, or it's an avenue for the more privileged to continue benefiting from these processes, as the rightfully needed people to have these scholarships are missing out. Secondly, education is the only other avenue that you can actually compete fairly. So when we are already disadvantaging other people by actually stealing from them and making them poorer, then we are actually shooting ourselves in the foot. We cannot be saying that we want to support education and at the same time leave that critical sector to such kind of people to con poor, desperate young people who want to go to other countries to get better education at the expense of their parents who have nothing other than take loans, sell their land, sell their only cows left to support these children. So in as much as we have those issues, I want to support what Senator Cherargei is saying and insist that it is time the ministry and the counties give a report on beneficiaries of these scholarships so far. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sige.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Education is one of the basic rights that the Constitution of Kenya protects. It is in this house that we are able to speak the way we are speaking. Without education, we, Mr. Speaker, could not have been in this house. We could not have been able to understand what is supposed to be done. We could not have been able to change the society that we are attempting to change. We cannot overemphasize the importance of education. And therefore, when we speak about supporting education, the most vulnerable society or members of the society to conmanship are the people who desire to be supported. The most vulnerable are the young ones, the poor, the have-nots. And when we take advantage of such situation, we are worsening their future. We are worsening the health of those who support them, who expects them to come and support them in future. We are killing an entire generation, because if we lose an entire 50 plus children or students, we have lost a generation. They say, Mr. Speaker, where I come from, when you educate a child, by the time he or she is out of school and have been employed and earning a salary, that child does not belong to that family. He or she belongs to the society. Where we have opportunities of scholarships, the best that an administration, a leadership, or a government can do is to ensure that it shows fairness across the board. It goes out of its way to also utilize such resources to support and not to kill the future of the children or of the parents who have gone out of their way to search for and avail resources to support. I therefore, Mr. Speaker, say that the motion, or rather the petition that has been brought forward by the Honorable Senator from Nandi, is something that cuts across every person in this country. It cuts across the rich and the poor, the young and the old. And therefore, I want to have my voice in it and say we should seek to obtain reports of the beneficiaries, the procedures within which such beneficiaries are normally selected, and also a follow-up as to the level of the abuse or good use of such opportunities by the relevant agencies of government and institutions that are involved. I therefore, Mr. Speaker, support the motion. Thank you.
Senator Maruma, you may proceed to seek your statement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to request these statements. There are three statements. The first one is a statement by the residents of Wikanga, whose land was encroached by Kenya Airports Authority. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Order 53, Standing Order 53.1, to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Land, Environment, and Natural Resources concerning the residents of Ikanga whose land was encroached by the Kenya Airports Authority. In the statement, the committee should, 1, state whether there was involvement of the landowners of Ikanga pursuant to Article 232(1)(d) of the Constitution before their land was acquired by the Kenya Airports Authority to pave way for the expansion of the Ikanga airstrip. Number 2, provide a list of residents who lost their land as a result of this expansion of Ikanga airstrip. And 3, explain reasons for the inordinate delay in compensation of the landowners and whether there are any plans to compensate them as provided for by Article 43B of the Constitution and Section 111 of the Land Act 2012, giving timelines within which such compensation, if any, will be availed. That is the first statement, Mr. Speaker. The second one is on the county boundary cut line between Taita Taveta County and 3 of its neighbors. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations concerning the county boundary cut line between Taita Taveta County and its 3 neighbors. In the statement, the committee should, 1, give the exact boundary points and geographic coordinates between Taita Taveta County and Makueni, Kwale, and Kajiado counties. Number 2, table documentary evidence of a boundary resolution agreement alleged to have been signed by the county governments of Taita Taveta and Kajiado on 4th July 2020. And 3, state whether the governors of the two counties altered any boundaries and whether the provisions of Article 188 of the Constitution were taken into consideration. The third one, Mr. Speaker, is on delayed payment of pension to retired Kenya Railways Corporation employees. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare regarding the delayed payment of pension to retired Kenya Railways Corporation employees. In the statement, the committee should, 1, determine the cause of the inordinate delay in payment of pension to the retired employees of the Kenya Railways Corporation. Number 2, state specific timelines, the steps being taken by Kenya Railways to conclusively address the issue of stopped monthly pension payment that is now running in arrears. 3, outline the measures the ministry has put in place, if any, to ensure that the retirees receive their pension as and when it falls due in order to save the pensioners from pecuniary embarrassment. Mr. Speaker, these two statements on compensation by Kenya Airports Authority on Nikanga airstrip and this statement about Kenya Railways Corporation employees was derived from the exit reports of these committees on labor and on lands. They were already there in the 12th Parliament and they're in the exit committees, and we had agreed that the only way to reactivate them then is by way of statements. This issue of Kenya Railways Corporation has been in the Committee for Labor, where I was Vice Chair in the last committee, and they started paying. And then we had agreed that they liquidate some of the assets which are in the upward of 20 billion. They have not been able to do that, and that's why we have these a pension falling into arrears. I know the Committee of Labor will look at this issue at depth so that these people who are suffering, who have worked very hard for Kenya Railways Corporation, can get their arrears. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Cheptumo.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to comment on the second statement by Senator Maruma. Mr. Speaker, I represented Baringo North as a member of parliament, and during my time, Mr. Speaker, I received a lot of cases of retirees, those in teachers, the police, and other civil servants, Mr. Speaker. And their main complaint is delayed remittance of their pension. Mr. Speaker, I think this is a serious challenge in our country. The one up before us today is about Kenya Railways. But Mr. Speaker, I think there's a problem in the Department of Pensions. Because, Mr. Speaker, the government has the data of retiring employees, and they know a time frame, they know the time they're going to retire, and they know the dues payable at that point in time. I can't understand, Mr. Speaker, the delay in payment of retirement benefits to retired civil servants. Mr. Speaker, remember, these are Kenyans who have spent all their time in serving our country, either in the armed forces or as teachers or in other departments. And Mr. Speaker, after retiring and they are not paid, they live very miserable life, Mr. Speaker. I think this is a time in this House has the means and the capacity, Mr. Speaker, to rise up and demand that the Department of Pension, Mr. Speaker, should not subject further more Kenyans to this suffering after retiring, Mr. Speaker, because this is not something that is not known to the government, Mr. Speaker. Look at the teachers, for example. For them to pay, retired teachers or any other civil servant, to pay their fees for their children, to meet their day-to-day demands and so on, Mr. Speaker, it really exposes our Kenyan people in a very, very difficult situation after retirement. So I want to support this, and I want to request the committee in charge that they need now to even call upon the Director of Pensions to appear before the committee to explain why they are unable to meet these very serious obligations, which they already knew from the word go that is payable. I support, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Beatrice Akinyi.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to comment on two statements that have been brought forward to the House by the Senator of Taita Taveta. The first one, Mr. Speaker, is about the delayed payment of pensions to the retired Railways Corporation employees. Mr. Speaker, as a country, I keep wondering why we demean our senior citizens. Because, Mr. Speaker, if it's not about non-payment of pension to teachers, then we have non-payment of pensions to KRA employees and to other sectors. Mr. Speaker, all of us are growing older, and all of us will need some upkeep as we grow up that has been invested in our working years. And Mr. Speaker, it is painful that people who are now older, who don't have the energy to work, who cannot now go looking for income from elsewhere because of their age, are the people who, as a country, we are denying their rightful payment. Mr. Speaker, when some of us were growing up, Kenya Railways was one of the places all of us aspired or to work in. A number of people around us were working at Kenya Railways, and we saw that they were living a nice work. They had houses that had been built for them. And I guessed as they worked, their families believed that their upkeep would keep on through the investment that the older people were making. Mr. Speaker, I stand to say that this matter should be looked into. It also pains me that as Senator Mwaruma has mentioned, it is an issue that has been before the House, even in the last Parliament. And Mr. Speaker, with your guidance, we want this matter to be dealt with once and for all. And Mr. Speaker, before I sit down, let me also add my voice to the next statement that is about the county boundary outline between Taita County and its three neighbors. Mr. Speaker, all I wanted to put before you is that as the Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations discuss this issue, I would pray that the Lands Committee is also brought on board. Mr. Speaker, I say this because boundary issues are issues of survey. It is survey that has the mandate to determine boundaries, and so it would be important that if lands is included, then the survey would also be brought in to deal with the issue of boundary issues once and for all. I say this, Mr. Speaker, because in the past I've seen boundary issues dealt with the Security Committee, and Mr. Speaker, the security comes in just to deal with the security issues that arise out of the conflict of boundaries. But primarily, if boundary issues are to be solved, Mr. Speaker, then the Lands Committee has to be involved. Mr. Speaker, I support the statement.
Senator Manzo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm one of the neighbors in dispute with the boundary with the Taita Taveta. And Mr. Speaker, the Constitution of Kenya fixes the boundaries as of the districts of 1992, and there is also a law which used to exist dealing with the provinces as then. And as that matter was, between ourselves and Taita Taveta, we have even taken this matter to the Council of Governors and still together with witnesses, and it was not resolved there. But I believe between myself and the Senator, the great Senator of Taita Taveta, we can sort it out, because it's a matter of public notoriety, a matter of fact, and a matter of law. And clearly, Mutituan Day is in Makueni, and the border is at Savo River. And even the current administration, the OCS for Mutituan Day, originates their jurisdiction from Savo River. The one who deals with the railway starts their jurisdiction from Savo River. And it has been the practice all the years. And even when the late President Kenyatta, the founding father of the nation, used to travel on road to Mombasa, they used to, the PC of cost, used
What is
to
your
pick.
point of order, Senator Maruma?
Mr. Speaker, is it in order for Senator, my friend Daniel Manzo, Senator Makueni, to mislead this parliament that the boundary between Taita Taveta and Makueni is in Savo River? Yet we know we have a polling station by IEBC in Mtitwandei, Mr. Speaker. Is he in order to mislead this House?
Senator Maruma, those are matters that you should leave to the committee that we're going to commit this statement to. Those are the ones who will tell us whether Tsavo River is indeed the boundary or the other boundaries. You did well by bringing this to, by seeking this statement from the standing committee. I believe at that time you'll be calling witnesses from both sides. And I believe the committee will also engage IEBC, the constitutionally mandated institution, to handle matters of boundaries, so that we can have a comprehensive report on this matter. Proceed, Senator Manzo, but please hesitate from veering.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I really look forward to the constitution of our current IBC, and I believe this matter will be settled as soon as possible. It's been to court, and the court indicated that it had no mandate, it had no jurisdiction to deal with the matter. But I believe between the leadership of Makueni, and I can see this is not the only border problem, there are 3 other counties, Mr. Speaker. And the great Senator of Taita Taveta is doing a great job to make sure we establish, but clearly by a new constitution, it goes by 1992 district boundaries, and that is as clear as day and night. And for that matter, I believe we'll sort them out, and I look forward to participate. We'll bring our witnesses. And luckily, we have very old members of our community who lived those days, and the maps are there and a lot of material, and I believe we'll be able to have it settled as Senate. Senate is a serious house and can resolve matters like this, so that any little errors can be corrected, and the people of Makueni and the people of Mtituandei can have a smile on their face, and also the people of Taita Taveta once they know that Mtituandei is in Makueni. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kinyua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries regarding distribution of subsidized fertilizer in Laikipia County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, state the number of farmers in the county who have benefited from the National Fertilizer Subsidy Program since the program began, stating the percentage of eligible farmers these numbers represent. 2, elaborate how the program has been implemented, stating the areas covered. 3, state measures in place to ensure that smallholder farmers in remote areas of Laikipia County have access to fertilizer, stating the current status of fertilizer stocks in the county. 4, disclose the points of fertilizer distribution, outlining measures, if any, to address the challenges of transportation in the remote areas of Laikipia County. And 5, state measures, if any, to monitor the impact of fertilizer distribution program on the overall agricultural productivity and food security in the county, stating plans, if any, to evaluate and improve the program based on this data. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mwaruma.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to support the statement by Senator Kenyan Nderitu, Senator of Laikipia. The issue of fertilizer, we're told, is an issue that would go a long way into mitigating the issue of food security. And distribution of fertilizer is not going to take place only in Laikipia, but other counties. I would like to write on the statement and indicate that if you can have that data, not only for Laikipia, but also for other counties in Kenya, then that would be good, because then you also need to know how much fertilizer has been given to my county of Taita Taveta. But Mr. Speaker, most importantly in this program, even as we plant using the subsidized fertilizer, we also need to find out the measure that the government is putting in place to ensure that the fertilizer does not go into waste. Because in my county of Taita Taveta, when we plant, we don't harvest, even when there is rain. Why? Because of human-wildlife conflict. So we want to see that working together of Ministry of Agriculture with Ministry of Tourism and KWS to ensure that if you want to mitigate on food security, then we also need to ensure that our farmers harvest the food that they plant. Our farmers are very hardworking, but when they plant, they don't harvest because their food is eaten by elephants, their food is eaten by monkeys, their food is eaten by baboons, so we're not harvesting. So we need to see all that program, how that program would work, of fertilizers, or providing fertilizers, which is subsidized, but also ensuring that the animals don't destroy the foods. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wafula.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kwa nafasi hii. Kitui. Na baadhi ya maswali ambayo mwenzangu Spika ameuliza ndio maswali ya wakulima wa ndengu walikuwa wanauliza, kwamba ni mbolea mifuko ngapi imeletwa maeneo hayo na ni vigezo vipi walitumia kuwapa wakulima mbolea hii. Hii ni kusema kwamba katika kumbukumbu na vitabu vya wataalamu wa kilimo, ekari moja ya shamba iwapo ni la mahindi huhitaji magunia kadhaa ya mbolea. Haya ambayo wataalamu husema yameafikiwa na idara ya kilimo, ama ni mbolea ambayo imekuwa inapeanwa tu kwa minajili ya kukimu kiu cha wakulima nchini Kenya. Hoja ya pili, ningependa kujua, kuna maeneo ya magala nchini humu ambamo serikali imeagiza mbolea kupelekwa. Wakulima wanapochukua mbolea hii wanaitishwa pesa ama hawaitishwi pesa? Kwa sababu nimekuwa nazungumza na mkulima mmoja kutoka eneo bunge la Bumula ambamo ameenda kuchukua mbolea kwa pesa zilizostahili, lakini akaambiwa kwa sababu ya kuhifadhi gunia lake la mbolea lazima apeane shilingi 85. Sasa iwapo wakulima maskini watakuwa wanaitishwa pesa kidogo kidogo kama hii, itaweza kuafiki malengo ya serikali? Jambo la tatu ambalo vile vile ningependa kuuliza serikali, kwa sababu kuna maeneo nchini humu ambamo inajulikana fika kwamba ni vikapu vya chakula nchini Kenya. Ni magunia mangapi ya mbolea yamefika maeneo haya? Kwa mfano Trans Nzoia, Bungoma, Uasin Gishu, Kakamega, Kisii, maeneo ambayo tunajua mahindi na vyakula vinatoka, vyakula vile vya kushika tumbo, sio vyakula vya mzaa tu kupoteza muda. So tungependa tujue serikali imepeleka kule magunia ya kutosha, kwa sababu Trans Nzoia, maeneo Trans Nzoia, Bungoma, Kakamega, mvua imeanza kunyesha na wakulima wameanza kupanda. Sasa iwapo magunia ya mbolea ni machache, kamati ya ukulima tutakuwa tunaweka majembe yetu chini kuhakikisha kwamba wale ambao wanapaswa kufanya kazi wanaifanya kikamilifu. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika, naunga mkono maoni ya seneta mwenzangu kuhusiana na mbolea nchini Kenya. Asante.
Senator Osotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to standing order.
Senator, you had queued here to contribute to this statement. That's why I picked your name.
I was waiting for my
I will
statement.
call you for your statement then. Just yield, I'll call you to make your request.
Okay.
Senator Boni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to congratulate Senator for Laikipia for the clarity which is required on this important issue. Mr. Speaker, Trans Nzoia, Bungoma, Uasin Gishu, sections of Nandi, Kakamega, they need to be reassured that there will be no case of diversion or interference with this fertilizer, because they have sat back and relaxed knowing that somebody is going to support them in that particular farm input. Mr. Speaker, logistics are a nightmare. If you go to a county like Kakamega, when you ask farmers to come and collect fertilizer in Kakamega town, as they do, I was in a function in Shinyalu constituency, which is 40 kilometers away from city center, a place called Ingolomosio. So a message comes on the phone of the farmer that you have paid, come and collect fertilizer in Kakamega town. So the farmer goes from Ingolomosio to Kakamega town, he queues there, then he goes back home because the queue was too long. When he repeats again, the very discouragement, the very loss of money then cancels out on the issue of cheaper fertilizer. Mr. Speaker, the shame of our administration is that when I was in Ingolomosio, I actually paid for two trucks to go and collect the fertilizer, then they bring at Kambiri market and the farmers could collect from there. That guy refused. He said he couldn't do it. And the farmers had the letter from the chief. I had given the chief the money to pay for the truck. May the distributor in Kakamega hear it from the Senate that the trucks that are coming from Ingolomosio to his office are meant to carry fertilizer, not to carry money to him to satisfy his appetite, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the second logistical challenge, and we don't want any enmity between my brother Wafula and myself. You go to Lugari Station, where we are disputing fertilizer, and you find that Naitiri location of Tongaren or Bungoma is in the neighborhood. So the farmers naturally cross over from Bungoma because it's nearer to come from Tongaren to Lugari than to go to their center, and they are taking away the fertilizer meant for Kakamega. Could the government put in proper logistics so that cross-county farmers do not interfere with each other to the extent that the program fails? Finally, Mr. Speaker, we would like this committee to table in this House a record of how much fertilizer was bought by the government, how much went where. We see whether the principle of equity was exercised. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mandago. Senator Oburu Odinga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think this is an important statement being sought. Mr. Speaker, fertilizer is a very, very important ingredient in farming. And the Kenya Kwanza government has stated that they don't want to subsidize consumption, that they are going to subsidize production. And they have put fertilizer as the only factor of production which they want to subsidize. Mr. Speaker, if it is not available, then of course even that little subsidy which they are giving to production in agriculture is failing. Mr. Speaker, in agriculture, the most important factor of production is land preparation. And when the price of diesel is skyrocketing, and then you tell us that you are subsidizing fertilizer, where will I get the money to prepare my land? Mr. Speaker, again, when you say you are subsidizing fertilizer, and you are again not providing cheap seeds, the seeds are very expensive. So how do you expect this farmer in the final analysis at the end to sell his maize cheaply when all the other factors of production have not been subsidized by the state? In Siaya, our governor is subsidizing farming, land preparation. He's giving the farmers 2,000 shillings for an acre. Land preparation tractors are provided. And then grain is also given free to the farmers. I think that is one way of reducing the cost of the price of food. But Mr. Speaker, I'm just mentioning this to say that this is a very important statement sought. Let us investigate it, but in wholesome, not just fertilizer. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chirangi.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. The issue of fertilizer, especially to us who come from countries that are called the bread basket or ugali basket, is very critical. And the President and the Kenya Kwanza government, Mr. Speaker, is committed in subsidizing production over consumption. And Mr. Speaker, we still have concerns, especially during the 7 days notice that were given. We discussed with them and it extended to 30 days. Mr. Speaker, the only challenge that we are having with the issue of fertilizer, especially in Nandi County, Mr. Speaker, is the aspect of distribution. Because when you look at Nandi, we have Mosoriat, NCPP depot, we have Celia in Masab sub-county, we have Lesos, Mr. Speaker, and there is no any other part, Mr. Speaker. So the issue that we wanted with the where receipting, and I've told Senator Linturi, the CS of Agriculture, to work on ensuring that the warehousing, because you cannot find somebody from Kambogi or Nyangori or Serem, all the way from Serem to drive all the way to Mosoriat, a number of kilometers, or even from Musasa, near Vihiga, all the way to Mosoriat, Mr. Speaker, to come and get only 2 bags of fertilizer. Mr. Speaker, I think we need to agree with the counties, Mr. Speaker, excuse me, so that we can see what we can do.
Senator Osotsi.
Mr. Speaker, is it in order for Honorable Cheregei, who is my neighbor, to claim that Musasa is in Nandi, when you know very well that Musasa is in Vihiga County? He said near Vihiga. It is not Vihiga. It is not near Vihiga. It is within Vihiga.
Yes, Mr. Speaker,
Senator Chirangi.
Senator Otsosi is a former immediate nominated member under ANC, although he ended up fighting the party and the party leader. He is new in terms of boundaries of Vihiga. There is a Musasa in Kabwareng, Mr. Speaker, in Kabwareng ward, where his opponent almost drowns him and vanquished him into political oblivion. Used to be MCA Swadi. In fact, he almost vanquished nascent political career of Senator Otsotsi. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Musasa, there is Musasa, and now, Mr. Speaker, maybe you can organize for us mileage. I'm willing to take him around the boundaries between Nandi and Vihiga. But some of us, Mr. Speaker, don't have mentality of expansionism. We respect the boundaries, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, finally, that is why I was saying the biggest challenge, Mr. Speaker, is the aspect of distribution. Today, Mr. Speaker, at around midday, I received an SMS from the one farmer in Celia, Mr. Speaker, NCPB. They are repackaging over 200 bags, and they are reducing to 30 kilos, Mr. Speaker, from initial 40 kilos of DAP, Mr. Speaker, and they are giving us 23 instead of Yara supply and others, Mr. Speaker, compared on the components of acidity of soil, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to appeal to the Ministry of Agriculture. 2023, the component of fertilizer is not sufficient, and it is not so good for our soil, especially in areas where they are planting maize, Kakamega, Trans Nzoia, Bungoma, parts of Kisii, Nandi, Uasin Gishu, Mr. Speaker. There is corruption that is going on. And I want to call upon that the purchase of Kenya National Trading Company, KNTC, in terms of purchasing, the distribution of fertilizer under the Ministry of Trade must be looked and be transparent, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, finally, is to appeal that the 3,500 that farmers are paying, to appeal to county governments, Mr. Speaker. You know, for example, in Nandi County, there is nothing going on in county government of Nandi. There is more of drama. To appeal to counties across the counties to create their own, even in a local center, like Aiboy Trading Center, Mr. Speaker, somewhere in Maraba Trading Center, somewhere in Kemeloi Maraba Trading Center, Mr. Speaker, somewhere in Gechek. Those small trading centers within Nandi, the county government can even be fair and create this as holding rooms, or where the farmers can pick their fertilizer and ensure, even in Chemase, Mr. Speaker, where Awasi is in Kisumu County, where we share between Kisumu and Nandi, somewhere called Mamboleo, Mr. Speaker, is let us access that in terms of access, because, Speaker, and finally, is these cane farmers, the tea farmers also need subsidized fertilizer, Mr. Speaker. So I want to assure, and Senator Oburu Odinga, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, is that, you know, even the Bible says, for us who are Christians, God only helps those who help themselves. Because if Senator Oburu Odinga says that the government should assist in preparation, the government should buy seeds, the government should buy fertilizer, Mr. Speaker, you might end up calling the government to come to your bedroom and assist you in siring your children. So what we are saying, Mr. Speaker, is that let us be ready to play our part as a nation, Mr. Speaker. And of course, Senator Oburu has said the reason he's here is because of health reasons. I accept. But I was worried since I didn't see him in Azimio rallies in Siaya. So I thought he doesn't believe in what his brother is pushing across the country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Senator, what is your point of order, Senator Sots? Majority Leader, kindly yield, have your seat. What is your point of order, Senator Osotsi?
Mr. Speaker, you know this is House of Honor, and our friend here and the honorable member for Nandi, he has made it a habit to use foul language on his colleagues.
Senator,
is it in order
you know exactly
for him to use that kind of language on?
Yes, but you know exactly when to rise on a point of order. You cannot let the member complete his speech, give him the latitude to say the so-called foul language, and thereafter wake up to realize that that language is unacceptable. Kindly, if you have to rise on a point of order to interrupt a speaking senator, rise it when he is actually making his speech. But under order, you just yield, Senator Osotsi. Just have your seat. Just have a seat. But pursuant to Standing Order 1 of the Senate Standing Orders, indeed, Senator Chirangei, that language you used is unparliamentary, and I will allow you to come back to the dispatch, and please withdraw it.
Mr. Speaker, sir, since I can't recall the part of the statement, maybe it can be struck out. The parts
To where you're inviting government to bedrooms to sire.
Mr. Speaker, my apologies. I made that statement in jest. I withdraw.
Senator Mogeni.
Mr. Speaker, I first rise to thank Senator for Laikipia, Senator Kinyua, to have brought this matter to the floor of the House, because the issues raised, Mr. Speaker, resonate with the challenges, the problems my people of the county of Nyamira are facing. Mr. Speaker, Nyamira, as you know, Mr. Speaker, we are basically small-scale farmers. We don't have big farms like what Senator of Nandi has told us, those big farms. As they are small farms, they are peasant farmers. We do farming for survival, for subsistence, Mr. Speaker. Now, the challenge we have, Honorable Speaker, is that the promise that was made to farmers, that subsidized farmers was going to be made available, has really not been actualized, Mr. Speaker. We have only one cereal board in the entire of Nyamira, at Nyansiongo. That's about a few kilometers from the home of my friend, Senator of Kericho. And Mr. Speaker, the fertilizer has never been delivered to Nyamira. I don't know whether the sitting CS has totally forgotten Nyamira. And Mr. Speaker, because God loves us, God loves Nyamira, God loves Kisii region, we have already received the short rains, Mr. Speaker, and we have planted. Now, even if the fertilizer is brought next week, how are the farmers going to use the fertilizer, Mr. Speaker? So I want to plead with those who implement the directives of the President to do them timely. And you know, when you promise, Mr. Speaker, peasant farmers, you know, when you tell them fertilizer is coming, them they know no other language. They trust what their leaders say. So when they don't get the fertilizer, they ask us questions and we have no answers. And then the way this thing is being implemented, Mr. Speaker, farmers are being told to go register their titles. But as you know, Mr. Speaker, in some regions like in Kisii, where we have serious pressure on land, yes, people have passed on, our parents have passed on, they have handed over land to their sons and daughters, but people don't have title deeds, Mr. Speaker. So you cannot, don't ask the farmer to produce a title deed. We just need our chiefs, assistant chiefs. We also have county government officials to have a register of farmers, Mr. Speaker.
What is your point of order, Senator Boni?
Could the senator for Nyamira substantiate his allegations that the government is demanding that farmers produce title deeds? Because we also come from counties, we grow maize, fertilizer is being given, none of our farmers is being asked to present a title deed. Why are you misleading the House? Why are you inciting the public? Or are you confusing the Senate to be an Azimio rally meant to fight for a handshake that we are not going to give you a baba?
Senator Mogeni, kindly.
Mr. Speaker, you know, if there are people I had a lot of admiration for, he's a senator of Kakamega, Senator Halwale. And even when I served as chair of Law Society, his son, who is a lawyer, was my friend. Respected senator, he has served for long, and we still have a lot of admiration for you. And there are statements I don't expect to hear from Senator Halwale, like telling me, senior counsel, Senator for Nyamira, that I'm confusing my contribution with an Azimio rally, Mr. Speaker. You know, Mr. Speaker, there are some, and I challenged Dr. Halwale, you know, you have that title, doctor. You know, Mr. Speaker, there are things you may say, and the members of the medical profession may actually recall the title, doctor. So what I'm saying here, Mr. Speaker, is something that is happening at my county, and I want to challenge Senator for Kakamega. If you think I'm not serious, I want to challenge you to join me over this weekend. I'll fuel your car. We go with you to Nyamira, and you'll see the issues I'm raising here are serious and affecting the farmers in Nyamira. We are not in a rally, we are debating. And I like the excitement in the House this afternoon, where we are raising serious issues. And Senator, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to inform Senator Galwale that I've risen up to raise issues that are facing farmers in Nyamira. And you're now making the impression, which I don't expect to hear from the Wood administration, that you are receiving preferential treatment in Kakamega, other than the Nyamira farmers. And it's you now is inciting my people, because I'm going to tell them that the whip, the Senator of Kakamega, has informed the House that the farmers in Kakamega are getting preferential treatment other than the stringent requirements that farmers in Nyamira are facing. This is the reality, Mr. Speaker, and as the people's representatives, we raise these issues, Mr. Speaker, so that those who are watching these proceedings, the CS agriculture, can come up with interventions. We all want our farmers to get fertilizer so that they can plant. When I go to Nyamira, Mr. Speaker, I want to enjoy ugali from my neighbors. I want when Senator Halwale makes a visit to Nyamira, I want you to come and meet a health population, Mr. Speaker. That's why we are raising this issue. So, Mr. Speaker, the issue of transportation is also a problem because farmers are expected to travel from Matongo, that's about 38 kilometers, the farthest point, all the way to Nyansiongo to come and pick 2 kilos of fertilizer. Doesn't make economic sense, Mr. Speaker. So there should be a very good partnership between the national government and the county government so that these fertilizer are taken to the sub-counties. Like in Nyamira, we have 4 sub-counties. Instead of storing that fertilizer at the cereal board, keep it at the sub-counties. Then the extension officer serving under the county can help us in the distribution. Request the county governments to avail vehicles to extend this fertilizer to the farmers. They don't need to travel on motorcycles coming to look for the fertilizer. So I'm appealing, Mr. Speaker, that when you commit this statement to the committee, I seek leave, Mr. Speaker, to ride on this statement of the Senator for Laikipia, so that this can also be extended, Mr. Speaker, to the plight that is facing farmers in Nyamira County, Mr. Speaker. I thank you.
Senator Aaron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to join the rest of my colleagues in just making a small contribution on this statement by our colleague, Senator John Kinyua. Mr. Speaker, you know that this is one of the signature programs of the Kenya Kwanza administration that we did promise to the people of Kenya, and they granted us the opportunity to implement that. While our predecessors, the handshake administration, used to subsidize consumption, we thought it wise, and economists worldwide will agree with us, that the proper thing to do is to subsidize production, make it possible to produce cheaply, and therefore eventually ordinary citizens will benefit by buying cheap products at the shop. That's why, Mr. Speaker, I'm a bit perturbed listening to many of the contributions of our colleagues, and you realize many of them haven't paid a keen attention, haven't been keen actually in following up this particular program. You are sure, if you listen to the senators that have contributed, that perhaps some of them haven't followed through to ensure, to understand first what the program is about, know the number of cereals and produce boards, stores that are in their counties. Many of the contributions, Mr. Speaker, are what you'd call armchair. Because, Mr. Speaker, in the unfortunate event that say you represent a particular county that hasn't been featured in this particular program, Mr. Speaker, then I cannot wait to just make an ordinary contribution to a statement that has been sought by another senator, Mr. Speaker. By now, I'd already be at the offices of the CS for Agriculture and demand for more prudent answers than just making a contribution in the Senate, Mr. Speaker, because I know for a fact that this program is being run across the country, and farmers are being asked, number one, to register, and number two, most importantly, Mr. Speaker, to select the nearest NCPB store to them. I agree, Mr. Speaker, with the colleagues who have said that perhaps in most cases, and I've seen this problem, Mr. Speaker, even in my own county of Kericho, that because of the fast structure of rolling out this program, Mr. Speaker, that the last mile element either isn't properly thought out or is too expensive for the administration and something that you want to urge them to reconsider, can they partner with the county governments, Mr. Speaker, so that these products are taken to the final or the closest doorstep to many of our farmers, at least at sub-county level, Mr. Speaker, because, like has been observed by many of our colleagues, there are farmers that have to travel very far distances to go and collect 2, 3, 4, or 5 bags of fertilizer, such that at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, they end up spending money which they had otherwise saved, Mr. Speaker. But I appreciate and I celebrate the fact that colleague senators are paying keen interest in this particular program. That's why I agree with the sentiments. I think it was Senator Jones Mwaruma of Taita Taveta who urged the Committee of Agriculture to not only consider what has been spoken about by our colleague, Senator of Laikipia, demanding for answers for Laikipia County, but let them give us a holistic answer of what has been done in each and every of our counties in this republic, Mr. Speaker, because our farmers need to reap the full benefits of this program, because this is a program that is being run for all the farmers of the Republic of Kenya, whether they are known farmers or unknown, because for one reason or the other, I think I had somebody contribute and say there is what they consider to be standard food, and I think in their contribution, Mr. Speaker, they said there are some that are producing things that are close to food but are not properly food. A farmer is a farmer, Mr. Speaker, and this is about production. This is about ensuring that at the end of the day, in the fullness of time, by the end of 1 year in office of this administration, farmers are able to buy unga cheaply. Forget about those fake programs that used to run under the handshake administration, Mr. Speaker, where we used to walk around the country, and when you ask about 100 shilling of unga, you can see the defenders of the millers are up in arms, Mr. Speaker.
What is your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, I think we are all Kenyans and we have studied history. There have been 5 administrations. I do not recall in the history of this country an administration called the handshake administration. The last administration was a Jubilee administration, with the president being Uhuru Kenyatta and the deputy president being William Samoei Ruto. Could he tell us, substantiate, which is this handshake administration that I may not be aware of?
Majority Leader, kindly explain, be candid.
You know, Mr. Speaker,
what do you mean by handshake?
It is another dark administration that came through some shadowy organization called the handshake, Mr. Speaker, that replaced a democratically elected government with some kangaroo arrangement that were made and cooked at Harambee House, Mr. Speaker. Since that administration came into office, and that's what I was explaining, you would hear of programs such as the one that I'm explaining, where you're told that millers have been called and they've been paid to subsidize unga for mwananchi. But at the end of the day, it was just an arrangement for big boys in this town where they'd make away with money, but you would never find that unga on the shelves. This program, Mr. Speaker, is to eradicate such scandals from this country, Mr. Speaker. And that's why I want to urge the Committee of Agriculture to furnish this House, Mr. Speaker, with answers.
What is your point of order, Senator Osotsi?
Mr. Speaker, I think we are degenerating as a House. When we allow the majority leader, someone who is holding a higher position in this House, to make very reckless statements which are not substantiated, and even use foul languages like kangaroo, I think, Mr. Speaker, we must take this House to where it belongs. We cannot allow this kind of talk in this respected chamber, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader, in as much as you may want to express your opinion, just express it in a parliamentary language. Kindly proceed.
Mr. Speaker, with tremendous respect to you, I don't think there is any unparliamentary word that I have used. Kangaroo?
Kangaroo is an English word.
It's an English word. From here, Mr. Speaker, what I will do, Mr. Speaker, to save this House from such future interruptions, when we finish the chamber discussion today, I will take my friend Osotsi and walk him down Mamangina Street. There is a very nice bookshop there called the Prestige Bookshop. I'll buy him a dictionary, Mr. Speaker. From then, he will never raise such points of orders, because he'll be able to establish what is proper point of order and what isn't, Mr. Speaker. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, in my conclusion, I conclude that this is a...
Majority Leader, as you you conclude your thoughts, kindly refrain from using foul language, demeaning language, and unparliamentary language. Proceed and conclude your.
Speaker, and I don't intend to do that. Worst of all, on a good friend like Senator Osoti. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, I conclude by saying the following, that I look forward to the Minister of Agriculture, Senator Mithika Linturi, appearing before this House, and these are such matters that do not even invite the Committee of Agriculture alone to come and listen to the answers, but it calls on all of us as senators representing the various counties to come and listen to how this program is being rolled out, because it's extremely too important to be allowed to fail, and the issues that colleague senators are raising are of extreme importance, Mr. Speaker. It's important for him to come and ensure that this program is properly streamlined and farmers enjoy the full benefit of this program. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Beatrice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to add my voice to the noble discussion about the provision of fertilizers that has been brought by Senator Kinyua. Mr. Speaker, as I do this, I only want to emphasize that the fertilizers must be provided in a timely manner so that they may be useful to our farmers. But Mr. Speaker, on top of the fertilizers, there is the issue of extension officers, agricultural extension officers that are supposed to be offered by our county governments. Honorable Speaker, as you share with our farmers back in the county, there's always lack of extension officers that are able to advise our farmers in a timely manner so that they're able to go over the challenges that they have with farmers. I appreciate the fact that seeds is also another issue, and on that level, I want to appreciate the Governor of Homa Bay, Her Excellency Governor Gladys Wanga, who was able to provide seeds to the farmers of Homa Bay County in a timely way. The only concern I would have as a person that comes from Homa Bay is that I hope the seeds, once procured and distributed, were distributed to the right farmers, and the right farmers got the seeds. But, Honorable Speaker, the issue of extension officers is an issue that our counties should take note of, along with other services that are offered by the agriculture and other related ministries. Honorable Speaker, you might be aware that in these days, unlike the past, our people, in order to get extension officers or even veterinary officers for that matter, basically just go for people who are privately practicing rather than services that should be offered by the government. So, Honorable Speaker, I support this statement. And Honorable Speaker, as I end and sit down, I want to be of little help to the senator, the Nandi senator, who has, over time, has a lot of difficulties on how to refer to the enigma, the Azimio leader. Other than refer to the Azimio leader as the brother, because you've been struggling over a period of time, rather than refer to him as the brother of Senator Oburu, which is the very little part that Kenyans are interested in, I would be of help to you, Senator. Refer to him as the father of devolution if you want. If you want, you could refer to him as the people's president. If you want, you can refer to him as an enigma, and the adjectives continue. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Segei.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Well, Mr. Speaker, one of the major promises that the Kenya Kwanza government gave to the people of Kenya when it was campaigning was to reduce the cost of living, reduce the cost of agriculture production, and enhance the source of income to the lowest level of the society, and that in most cases is the farmer. I want to appreciate the statement being sought by the Honorable Senator from Laikipia, who I would have expected him to do the statement in Kiswahili because I had encouraged myself to do it today, but unfortunately opted to do the language that I'm responding to now on. I come from a county that agriculture is one of the major, and I would say, Mr. Speaker, in the course of our economic forum, which was a program that was the main source of the vote that we attained, we had agriculture being voted in as 60% of what the people of Bomet do. Therefore, when a program like this one is facilitated by the government, number one, Mr. Speaker, it is honoring the commitment and the promise it made to the people, and the challenges that have come with it are among those which are in the teething problems. Mr. Speaker, subsidizing the fertilizer from a price of 6,500 to 3,500 is in itself an achievement. And I would wish to support the request for additional support in the context of availing the fertilizer closer to the people, where if it were possible, which I know it is, because the Kenya Kwanza government is a government that works on consultation and listens to its people. We devolve beyond the NCPB stations and liaise with the county governments to ensure that even at the sub-county level, farmers are able to register, farmers are able to also easily access this fertilizer product, because at the moment, we previously, over a few weeks ago, crying over the dry season. It is now a rainy season in most parts of the country, and it is going to be prudent and available for the people of Kenya to ensure that they support their growth both in economic and supply of food, because food, Mr. Speaker, is one of the major factors that gives our people better in terms of health, production, and also as a source of income. So I appreciate and I would like to support the statement, and where the relevant committee will have been given the opportunity to deal with this, including summoning the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture to this House, we will get appropriate answers and also support in ensuring that this program is successful, both in terms of the documentation that has been put in place and also supporting the Kenyans all over the country to benefit from this very noble and important program. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to the statement by the Honorable Senator Kinyua from Laikipia County. I thank you.
Honorable Senators, allow me to interrupt debate on this very important matter to make the following communication. Honorable Senators, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon, a visiting delegation from Quorum Girls High School in Kisumu County. The delegation comprises 7 teachers and 161 students who are in the Senate for a one-day study visit. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I will allow the Senator for Kisumu, the Honorable Tom Ojenda, to make brief welcoming remarks. Thereafter, we resume debate on this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Let me take this opportunity to welcome the 161 students and the 7 teachers from Quorum Girls to Senate. I believe they have had time to tour the National Assembly, and this being a bicameral system, they now know that the role of National Assembly is to enact legislation that touches on national questions, while Senate deals with devolved structures of the 47 counties. I am sure that they've also had time to study the history of Senate and to generally understand the governance as divided amongst the three arms of government. Mr. Speaker, sir, I just want to encourage the students that when they visit Senate and other institutions, that their duty and obligation as students is to ensure that they not only learn, but this should serve as a lesson that the Senate is a house of possibilities, as is the National Assembly, and that for those who aspire, that it's a possibility that there would be senators in future or members of parliament, and learning from this experience, they should try to do their best as they scale the heights of education through high school and to the university. They should also learn, Mr. Speaker, sir, that education is the only key to success, because without learning, you cannot undertake or you cannot join certain professions in this country. So I welcome them, and I hope that when they return to Quorum, and that is in Moroni, where my home is, they will have equipped themselves with vast knowledge, not just because they are from a rural constituency, but because I am sure this is one of their first trips that they've done to Senate, because I'm seeing them for the first time. So welcome, ladies, and welcome teachers to Senate, and always remember that the only space that is there in education is the space at the top, because it is all taken down here, as you can see, and unless you aspire to be better than yourself, you'll find yourself in this sea of unemployment where you have many Kenyans. So do your best so that you rise above those in the sea of unemployment. And you do that by choosing interesting professions. Choose professions where you are likely to succeed. Choose professions that are of interest, and learn to be different. When you are different, you'll always succeed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you very much, Senator Professor Tom Ojenda. Senator Kipkiror William Cheptumo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I arise to support the statement by the Laikipia Senator, Senator John Kinyua. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the President for initiating this program of availing subsidized fertilizers to our farmers. Mr. Speaker, the philosophy behind this program, as we all know, is to enable our farmers access the necessary inputs, Mr. Speaker, for them to undertake farming. Mr. Speaker, farmers struggle to achieve and to buy the fertilizers and the seeds, and even to do the farming itself, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the reduction of the cost of the fertilizers will go a long way in enabling our farmers, Mr. Speaker, to undertake farming, and therefore we have high productivity in our farms. Mr. Speaker, whereas I appreciate the President in initiating the program of supplying fertilizers, or rather fertilizers which is under the subsidized program, Mr. Speaker, the seeds is equally another item I would like to request the government to also reconsider, so that, Mr. Speaker, you subsidize the fertilizers and also the seeds. That will go a long way in helping our farmers. Mr. Speaker, Baringo County unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, was not among the counties that was to benefit from this program, the initial counties that was earmarked. Mr. Speaker, I have been able to find out, and I have never been able to know, Mr. Speaker, why Baringo was not included in the first instance. Perhaps there is a perception, Mr. Speaker, that Baringo, which is true, we are 60% arid and semi-arid. But, Mr. Speaker, let me inform the country and this House that the 35% to 40% of Baringo, Mr. Speaker, is high potential agricultural area. The entire of Eldama Ravine, Mr. Speaker, the entire of almost 70% of Mokoti constituency, 60% of Baringo Central, almost 40, 30, no, about 50% to 60% of Baringo North, part of Tiate, a big portion of Baringo South. So, Mr. Speaker, I think that was the perception that existed then. But, Mr. Speaker, I am happy that after intervention, because we had a moment to share this with the head of state, as leaders of Baringo, I am happy now from the report I have is that, and I also spoke to my colleague, my former colleague, the Minister for Agriculture, that, Mr. Speaker, Baringo now will be part of these counties to benefit from this program. Mr. Speaker, it is important that we facilitate our farmers, we enable them to undertake farming. Because, Mr. Speaker, as said earlier, the subsidies provided for initially was not addressing the challenge we have. So food production in our counties, Mr. Speaker, is important. If we do this and we do irrigation, we do the dams that our government, Mr. Speaker, currently is planning to do. Like in Baringo, Mr. Speaker, one is we do Chemasusu Dam, we do Beregai Dam, we do Maya Dam, and we do the other dams which we have agreed to do with the government, Mr. Speaker, and we undertake irrigation. Mr. Speaker, I want to assure you that this country will be self-sufficient in terms of food production, Mr. Speaker. And I think this is the right way to go. Finally, Mr. Speaker, as we provide this subsidized fertilizers, and as government perhaps thinks of providing subsidized seeds, Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Livestock should be able, when Mr. Speaker was growing up those days, we used to have extension officers in our villages, in our farms. Today, Mr. Speaker, we don't have those kind of officers in our farms. It is high time, Mr. Speaker, the government again continues to look at this holistically. And I think, Mr. Speaker, this is the only way, because our country is an agricultural country, and if we invest more in this, Mr. Speaker, our country will not be importing food, but we are going to be self-sufficient in our supplies, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleague, Honorable John Kinyua, for this statement, and I want to request my friend, Minister for Agriculture, to ensure that Baringo, a county that is faced with challenges, Mr. Speaker, of insecurity, is given enough fertilizers so that every farmer in Baringo shall benefit and ensure that we have good supplies for our people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Thank you, Senator Cheptumo. Senator Osotsi Godfrey Atieno, the Senator for Vihiga.
Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Education regarding the status of Kaimosi Friends University after being awarded a charter on the 2nd August 2022. In the statement, the committee should, 1, table a comprehensive report on the reasons for the inordinate delay in implementing the charter and guaranteeing maximum benefit of an accredited university legal rights, including full funding and the award of degrees. 2, shed light on the excessive delay in appointing a substantive vice-chancellor as required by Section 16 of the University Act, as well as the appointment of a university council. And finally, clarify whether Kaimosi Friends University will be funded as a fully fledged university in the anticipated second supplementary budget, and thereafter the financial year budget for the financial year 2023-2024. The second statement, Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Lands, Environment and Natural Resources regarding the harvesting of cypress trees at Kabiri Forest in Vihiga County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, table a comprehensive report on the non-involvement of the local community in cypress timber harvesting, despite their participation in the planting of the said trees and other conservation activities. 2, provide a report on the procurement of tree or timber harvesting contracts, indicating the farms and individuals awarded the tender. And 3, Mr. Speaker, state the measures put in place by the Kenya Forest Service, if any, to ensure that the local community participates in the timber harvesting for economic empowerment and subsistency of the forest conservation effort in the county. Mr. Speaker, allow me to make one comment on this. This is a very serious issue, and communities living in the area have planned to engage the administration in the area on this issue, because people in the area have been involved in tree planting in that forest. But when it comes to harvesting of the timber, you find people from outside the county having been brought in, given the contracts to harvest timber, while the locals who participated in the planting of the timber have been left there. So this problem is causing a major challenge in the area, which I think the relevant institution, which in this case is
Senator
Kenya Forest Service, must take cognizance and give a solution to the problem.
Well, I wanted to intervene because you already debated me on statement, which you are seeking for statement.
I had asked you to give me 1 minute to comment on it.
Which was beyond the time that you had requested for by submitting.
Very well.
Thank you.
Very well,
You
Mr.
may
Speaker.
yield. I'm seeing there are 2 requests. Senator Manzo Daniel Kitonga, and honorable members, we will also limit because we need to move to the next order paper. So go ahead, Senator.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the statement on education and about the Kaimosi Friends University College. Mr. Speaker, when this charter was awarded, it was not just awarded to this particular university, but to quite a number of other universities, and all of them have not been actualized, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, university education is very important and is the equalizer of Kenyans, and especially children from disadvantaged homes and disadvantaged communities. Mr. Speaker, when a charter is given and its authorization means that a vice-chancellor is appointed, it means a budget is appropriated, and also it means that the status of the university changes, the awarding of degrees, so that quite a number of students could benefit and expand the space of education in this country. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, this has not happened. It has caused a delay, and there is no indication as to when it will happen and whether such universities will be operationalized. Mr. Speaker, that crushes our spirit because as Makueni County, we've been looking forward into a university of that status, and especially a public one. But now, if the already existing one, whose charter has been given, have not been operationalized, it means then we are likely to be more disadvantaged as the people of Makueni or other parts of the country, and also our own children. There are quite a number of students transiting from high school to university. We have 100% transition allegedly from primary school to secondary school. Then you need another transition to university. What happens, Mr. Speaker, when this university's charter has not been operationalized and there is no time frame as to when it will be made operational and to when this university will start awarding degrees or will prepare? Mr. Speaker, I think it's an important statement. It needs to be activated. The Minister of Education needs to tell us what is happening, and also you are finding challenges, Mr. Speaker, even with the CBC and many other complications in the education sector. I hope this is going to be honored the fastest possible. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Halwale Boni.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the Senator of Vihiga. Kaimosi is one of the historical centers of development in our community. And therefore, I thank the government for elevating the institution into a university, and I would like further clarity on the fate of Kaimosi TTC. Is the TTC going to fade off, or is going to continue offering diplomas pari passu? My second comment, Mr. Speaker, is on the important statement about the forest. We would like the government to be clearer. We have since discovered in this era of negative climatic change that allowing plantation forest within natural forest like Kaimosi forest ends up destroying the natural forest. Is it going to be, going forward, still the policy of the government that they allow plantation forest in Kaimosi at the risk of killing the natural forest? And finally, Mr. Speaker, we would like the statement to also assure us, people who come from the Kaimosi forest area, Kakamega forest area, Malaba forest area, Nandi forest area, and Bunyala forest area, we would like to be assured that the current recruitment of forest rangers, affirmative action will be offered to youth from those aforementioned areas, because they are the ones whose parents, grandparents have been preserving this forest. There would be no reason why, for example, and with due respect to Senator Kiptumo, why youth from the arid Baringo would be competing with these children whose parents have been preserving this forest. Could we be assured of affirmative action, more jobs for those children?
Senator Beatrice Akinyi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I only want to add my voice to the one singular statement by Senator Godfrey Ososi about the harvesting of cypress trees at Kibiri Forest in Vihiga County. Honorable Speaker, this is a serious concern because as a country, we are grappling with the percentage of forest cover, and we are grappling with the effort. The government is making effort of planting over 15 billion, if I can remember, trees. So if we have a situation where a group of people are given the express permission that is not checked by the local people to cut down trees, and the people are not involved, Honorable Speaker, this is very pathetic. In this statement, Honorable Speaker, we would like to see the commitment that has been made for reforestation of the same Kibiri forest. Honorable Speaker, why I got so concerned is because in my county where I've come from, there's the Ruma National Park that a number of cartels were, few years ago, were given the blanket check to cut down the whole forest, as we talk, Honorable Speaker, and this is the only forest that houses the roan antelope, a species of the antelope that is only found in the Ruma Park the world over. A number of people were given permission, I assume, to cut down the forest. At that point, there were talks of commitments that were made to replant on a afforestation program. Honorable Speaker, up to now, the forest remains bare. Our animals are suffering, and this is a forest park that has been very attractive to tourists, both local and foreign visitors, Honorable Speaker. Along with the Ruma National Park is the Kodera forest that was equally cut down by the same cartels. Honorable Speaker, this must not go on, and I support this statement by Senator of Vihiga County.
Senator David Wakoli Wafula, 1 minute as we earn on this one.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika. Yale ambayo tunaona yakiendelea katika maeneo mbalimbali humu Kenya ya kukata miti, na ukataji huu ni maeneo ambayo yametajika jinsi umesikia. Nadhani ni mpango ambao mabepari wa kisiasa wako nao kuhakikisha maeneo fulani ya humu nchini yanapoteza urithi wake. Kwa mfano, misitu ya Kaimosi, kiitikadi na kijamii, mila na desturi za Watiriki hufanyika katika misitu hii. Na haiwezekani kupata watu kuja tu na mashine kukata miti pasipo kukubaliana na washikadau maeneo haya. Misitu ya Malava, misitu ya Mlima Elgon. Mimi naomba kwamba iwapo kuna njama ya kiserikali ama wale waliomo serikali na mafidhuli wanabiashara, sisi kama maseneta kutoka maeneo yetu tupambane na wao kule mashinani. Kwa sababu mama binti seneta amesema itakuwaje miti ikatwe na hakuna upanzi wa miti unaoendelea hadi sasa? Ni Kenya gani tunaishi, Mheshimiwa Spika, ambamo mtu amekaa Nairobi anatia sahihi barua ya kukata miti Nyanza, na mwenyewe hajui watu wa Nyanza wanaishi namna gani, wameumia kivipi, wana uhusiano upi na miti ile na mazingira haya. Mimi naomba serikali na naomba jumba hili la Senate kwamba iwapo sisi kama serikali tumeamua kwamba tunapanda miti, haipaswi mpaka sasa tusikie watu wanaenda misitu yetu kukata miti, ili hali hata ule mwito ambao rais ametoa hatujafika nusu ya yale ambayo tunaahidi wa Kenya kwamba tutapanda. Sasa mimi naomba jumba la Senate na kamati inayohusika na misitu na mali asili tujikite katikati ya mambo haya na tuhakikishe kwamba urithi wa watu wetu ambao umelindwa kwa miaka na mikaka haishambuliwi na watu ambao wanaona pesa peke yake na haoni maisha ya wanyama pale ndani, haoni urithi wa kitamaduni pale ndani, haoni uborefu wa mazingira na hewa safi katika maeneo yetu. Na hivi nikimalizia, hii ndio miti imetusaidia sisi watu wa mkoa Magharibi na Bonde la Ufa kupata mvua wakati unaostahili. Sasa iwapo tutakata miti hii, awamu yetu ya siasa sasa, siku zijazo tutaambia watu wetu nini? Kwamba tuliungana na mafidhuli kukata miti kwa sababu ya matumbo yetu? Mimi napinga na nahusiana kabisa na hoja ya Mheshimiwa Soti kwamba hatutakubali miti ambayo ilipandwa na mababu zetu kushambuliwa na watu ambao hawakuwepo, lakini njaa imewaleta kwetu. Tutapambana nao kwa udi na uvumba. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Speaker.
Members, honorable members, there being no other statements, call the next order.
Order number 8, the Natural Resources Benefit Sharing Bill, Senate Bills number 6 of 2022, second reading, division.
Honorable members, we do not have sufficient numbers for division, and we shall therefore defer this order. Next order.
Order number 9, the County Vocational Education and Training Bill, Senate Bills number 3 of 2022, second reading.
The Honorable Senator Moses Kajwang, who is the mover of this bill, is not in the House. We shall also defer this. Next order, please.
Order number 10, motion, provision of free sanitary towels to end period poverty.
The motion is also sponsored and moved by the Honorable Senator Gloria Roba. She's not in the House. This also be deferred. Call the next order, please.
Order number 11, motion, the doping menace threatening Kenya's impeccable global reputation in athletics.
Honorable Senators, this is a motion which we are resuming debate, and the debate in itself was interrupted on the 9th of March 2023. The mover, Honorable Senator Samson Cherargei, you have got 11 minutes to continue with moving your motion. So you may work within the 11 minutes so that you conclude in this motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I was continuing last time to say, issues of doping continue to become soft underbelly in our sports fraternity, not only in athletics but also across many other sports like football, any other form. You have to appreciate the fact that most young people, especially from North Rift where I come from, Kisii, Nyamira, Mount Kenya region, when you wake up 5 a.m., 4 a.m. in the morning, they are running in groups. Mr. Speaker, they are not night runners, and they are not part of night runners, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, the runners who also run in Nairobi in the stadia very early in the morning are not at least, they are just losing weight because of the recommendation of doctors, or they want to acquire what we call summer bodies. Mr. Speaker, this issue of WADA, World Anti-Doping Agency, Athletics Integrity Unit, the issue of Anti-Doping Agency in Kenya has left Kenya at precarious situation, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, sir, I know there are students, I think, from Quorum girls, and most of them are also athletes, Mr. Speaker. And they should play their trade, be it football, netball, athletics, cleanly. Because, Mr. Speaker, this scheme of corruption, where people want to make riches quickly, is they are using substance that will add, Mr. Speaker, into their performance. And therefore, the future generation that is sitting before us in the gallery of the beautiful school of Koru Girls Secondary School in Kisumu, I know a number of them are maybe athletes, sportsmen, sports girls that we wish them. Mr. Speaker, in the recent past, the Kenya's athletics and this credibility of Kenyan athletes, Mr. Speaker, we don't reach a situation when we win gold. No one believes, Mr. Speaker. Like, for example, we were risking an international ban where over 25 athletes hit with sanctions, 19 active cases pending as of 2022 last year alone. And I want to, at this point, thank His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Arap Ruto, and the government of Kenya Kwanza for intervening, because we were risking banning, Mr. Speaker, like Russia and other countries, where for the next 3 years, and it would have dented our credibility as one of the giants of athletics, where we are the colossus, we globetrot with the pride of being the best in athletics, Mr. Speaker. Among the top names of the ban in the recent are 2021 Boston Marathon champion Diana Kipyogei and mountain racer Mark Kangogo, alias also Rita Chepta, multiple Chicago and Boston Marathon winner, and Jemima Sumgong, who won the Rio Olympic title in 2016, sprinter Mark Otieno Odhiambo, recent Porto Marathon winner, Alice Chepkemboi Kimutai. Mr. Speaker, these are some of the athletes that are banned. But Mr. Speaker, also ADAC and WADA has been accused of spying, Mr. Speaker, sir, on these athletes, where athletes have conversed, and there was an interview, I don't know whether it was KTN or which station was carrying, where some of the athletes are saying they refuse to remove money. Athletics Kenya, Integrity Athletics Unit, Anti-Doping Agency, and World Anti-Doping Agency officials colluded to, even without listening to their pleas and affecting the principles of natural justice. The common drugs that are being used, Mr. Speaker, and I'm happy I can see Senator Eddie Okech, after an eventful Friday or Saturday hosting the Azimio One Kenya Alliance leader, I can see he's back to serving the people of Migori. I think he got carried away, but it's good to have him back. And he's saying that on Monday there is an holiday, which is illegal, Mr. Speaker. I'm just welcoming you, my brother. The most commonly abused drugs are this.
What is your point of order, Senator Eddie?
Mr. Speaker, I just got to this house. I haven't spoken since the house started. Is it in order to be quoted anywhere in the answer on things I haven't said in this house? Like Chiragay is saying that I've said something I didn't say in this house.
Very well, Senator Chiragay. You heard Senator Eddie. Although
Mr.
Senator
Speaker,
Eddie, you are being recognized for coming into the House by the Honorable Senator.
Yes, I was
did
just
not
welcoming.
make any comments as to a statement you have made in the House.
Yes, Senator, I was welcoming Senator Eddie, my younger brother, who is still running the ropes, back to the House. And I'm happy he has not joined bandwagon. You know, Azimio One Kenya Alliance, except my sister, are strategically boycotting the House. But they will keep boycotting, but I can assure them that they will boycott until Jesus comes back, but the business must continue. Mr. Speaker, the most commonly abused drugs are two, namely Mr. Speaker, there is allegations that Monday has been declared a public holiday. It is unlawful, it is illegal, it is unconstitutional, and of course, how the procedure of declaring a public holiday is known. So every Kenyan who will not report to work, they will face serious repercussions. Let those who want to boycott, and they should also boycott even taking their salary for that day because of not working. Mr. Speaker, the most commonly abused drugs are norastrone. I needed to get this name, so allow me to read norandrosterone and trimisonol acetinone, mostly used for weight loss, muscle building, and endurance. So when you see somebody walking around like a cabbage, Mr. Speaker, the cabbage, you know this one has used these drugs. And you know there is craze of losing weight in this Nairobi. There is craze of losing, adding to Mr. Speaker. Take another point on the issue of raw coaches and agents.
Senator Chiragay, there is a point of order. What is your point of intervention, Senator Eddie?
Mr. Speaker, I rise on the point of order number 40. That states that at any given point of proceedings in this House, if any of the senators identify that there's no quorum in the House, they might raise with you, Mr. Speaker. I plead with you to check whether there's quorum in the House, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, I have ascertained that we do not have quorum in the House, and I therefore ask that the quorum bell be rung for 5 minutes. Meanwhile, Senator Chiragay, stand down. Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 41-2A, there being no quorum, the Senate stands adjourned until tomorrow, Wednesday, 15th March 2023 at 2:30 p.m. Honorable Cherargei, you will have 6 minutes to continue.